Hello everyone. If you are new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do it. Thanks. By the way, I also have a Luffy fan fiction channel. If you are interested, the link is in the description.
Cracked Mask by Denim88. Hueco Mundo. Home of vicious and horrendous souls called hollows. Then he became one of them. Naruto will prove that even as a hollow, life is determined by one's own beliefs and shake the foundation of the spiritual world as a result. I don't own anything. Adios.
Darkness. Naruto was unable to figure out what were up and down as he floated in what he could only assume to be the miniature dimension that Aizen had imprisoned him in. The blonde couldn't help but feel like he'd been slapped in the face. He hadn't been attacked. No, he had been cast aside for later. It was like a game to Aizen. So, how the hell do I get out of here? Naruto knew that it was more than possible to escape one of these pocket universes created via Kaha negation. Hell, he had seen Nell use it once on Neutra way back in the early days serving as her Fracione. If Neutra could get out of one of these, then he could too. The blonde unconsciously touched the hilt of his blade, feeling a bit more secure with knowledge that he had Rei de Zoro's at his side. Looking around, Naruto found no traces of light. He waved his hand in front of himself, unable to see anything. TCH, you think he'd at least give me a light source? Damn it, Aizen. I'm going to kill that bastard. Cracking his neck, Naruto flexed a bit before releasing a wave of Ryotsu. He felt the world around him reverberate in response, but nothing further. In fact, if anything, he felt as though his Ryotsu was merely being deflected back at him by some unseen force. This wasn't good. Naruto had no clear idea of what he needed to do to break out of this place, though it was supposedly within his capabilities to escape. If he only had a clue about what to do. If time were more on his side, he'd be comfortable mulling things over and trying to figure out a way out of his prison, but he didn't have that luxury at the moment. Not as long as Aizen was alive and well. Naruto released a stronger wave of Ryotsu this time, which shook the area around him more, but showed no signs of weakening. The place merely deflected his spiritual pressure right back at him, as though he was in a world of Ryotsu-resistant rubber. Not giving in yet, the media espada began to saturate the area in his spiritual power, only to feel the overwhelming Ryotsu he generated come right back at him. He growled as he realized no progress was being made, and opened up a hand. A bright orange ball of energy formed, and Naruto finally got a good look at his surroundings, or lack thereof. The dimension Aizen had sent him had no clear boundaries. He looked to his feet to see a surface below him. It appeared to be made of liquid judging by the way the surface moved. The horizon before him was rather non-existent, and from the looks of things, the place was a vast void of liquid covered land. Still, how was it reflecting his Ryotsu back at him? Closing his eyes and dissipating his glowing orb of light, he took in a deep breath. There had to be a way out. All the Espada knew how to do it. While he never had the authority to use Kaha negation due to his rank, Grimmjow had shown him the basics one day by using it on a random hollow they ran across in Hueco Mundo. Theoretically, each of those tiny cubes was a separate universe, so no one never ran into anything else while locked away inside of them. Once a Kaha negation was used, it dissipated. Maybe. Naruto thought. Maybe I'm worrying too much about this. Panicking never helps. He continued floating in the black space while crossing his legs. He began meditating, concentrating on his Ryotsu. Oi, Fox. You there? Of course I am. I see you've gotten us into another wonderful mess from the looks of things. Shut it. Now isn't the time. Any idea how we can bust out of here? The Kyuubi let out a contemplative growl. No, but I'm certain this place has boundaries. We've been sucked into another realm, so if we can just find a way to cross the rift between this realm and the one where Aizen is, we'll be fine. I don't think I can make a Garganta here. I don't sense any spiritual pressure outside of my own here. The Kyuubi was quiet for a moment before it spoke. Perhaps you weren't digging deep enough. Naruto gave an audible grunt. Yeah, maybe I need to release Rei de Zoro's in. No, you imbecile. I mean that maybe you're not digging into the deepest depths of your power. You're an Arrancar. While you have been alive, you've feasted upon scores of hollows. I'm not an Ijukas anymore, Fox. Those souls are all integrated into me permanently. I'm not like a Manos Grande where I can just be overcome by the sheer mass of souls within me. Naruto replied, what once was a tight mixture is now a solid entity. They can't be separated. Fool, you can still use the power you gained. Think of it like this. When you use your Resurrección, you use about what? 50 to 60% of your Ryotsu reserves. Naruto nodded slowly, give or take. The other 40% is just held back so that I can channel it later if I have to raise the bar in a battle. Right. Considering you've gotten stronger since your last fight, what was once 60% of your power is now closer to 50 to 55%. The Demon Fox explained, if you use all of your power at once. I think I see where you're going. I can create a fracture in the supposed boundaries of this world, and break out. It'll have to be all at once, and very quickly. This world obviously can deflect strong waves of Ryotsu, but if you put enough force behind your power you should be able to break out. Right. Naruto spoke aloud, I'll just have to dig deep inside of my reserves. His eyes still closed, Naruto began to call upon his Ryotsu. He could feel the giant mass that was his spiritual energy begin to pulse. He mentally dug up more and more of his energy. What were once hundreds upon hundreds of hollow souls now mere portions of his self. It was close to 5 minutes when he halted suddenly. A strange sensation came upon him. He had called up a fraction of his power, but it seemed heavier than anything he had felt earlier from within him. Was it the Kyuubi? No, this power, while his, felt like it belonged to both a human and a hollow, not an Arrancar though. He studied the chunk of energy within him, rolling it over in his mind as he began to frown. He soon filtered out any spiritual residue that didn't resemble what he was looking at, and found that the enigma of Ryotsu was in fact two separate entities. What was most intriguing, however, was that these two portions seemed to be exactly like his Ryotsu. This would be normal with a high-level hollow or espada. What they ate became a part of them, though faint traces of the former hollows always clung to the Ryotsu, usually only noticeable to the being in control, and no one else. However, these portions of Ryotsu were seemingly pure. It was as though Naruto had seemingly eaten what appeared to be almost exact replicas of himself eons ago when he had been a mere hollow. How though? That was impossible. Naruto felt a sudden spike in his power before it suddenly dropped, and he opened his eyes to see 2 wisps of light shoot out of his chest. He blinked as the wisps erupted, blinding him momentarily. He slowly opened his eyes, and when he did, he found his voice to suddenly be gone. He stared, unable to believe his eyes. This couldn't be. How could it be real? Naruto. Ah. Naruto's voice was caught in his throat. Who? How did you? We've been with you since the day you were born, son. Ichigo coughed up blood, the crimson fluid leaking down his mask as he breathed heavily. Damn, he's not even scratched. Nell held her lance with her right arm, the other lying limp and broken at her side. Ichigo, are you alright? Fine. Just exhausted, the wizard boy answered. How about Ulquiorra? The Quattro had called forth his second form shortly after they had engaged Aizen in battle. It didn't seem to do much, but he was at least able to regenerate his legs, which had been lobbed off by Aizen. I find it rather amusing how you 3 continue to fight me, even after realizing how fruitless it is to do so. The trio looked to Aizen, who had his blade resting at his side. Rest assured, you have been performing well. I have not been powers like I normally do, so anytime you've managed to avoid my attacks or clash steel with me, it was real. Ichigo growled. Aizen really was arrogant, but at the same time he could back up his words with his actions. He had even gone as far as to say that everything Ichigo had done up to this point was planned out by him. Unfortunately, I'm afraid our little bout will have to end here. He lifted his blade so it was raised before him. I'll be sure to make this as quick as. Whoosh. Clang. Aizen's words were cut off as a large metallic object wrapped around him. Black chains holding him in place. The traitor looked down to the source of the chains to see Sakura holding her shikai in one hand by the chains, the other hand covered by a gauntlet. Sakura-san. I'm surprised to see you approaching me. Perhaps you think that this will do any good for the others? Sakura glared at Aizen. I don't know. Although, I can say right now that no enemy has ever tried to block my gauntlets directly. Let's see if there's a reason for that. The pink-haired Shinigami yanked on the chain connecting her gauntlet, pulling Aizen with it. The transformed captain came flying towards Sakura, who cocked back her gauntlet-covered fist. Hurrah! The buildings surrounding Sakura shook as she connected with Aizen's jaw. There was an audible crack, and a white blur went flying through several buildings before hitting a brick wall and coming to a stop. Sakura slipped her other hand into her now free gauntlet and blasted off the rooftop. Even if your power and mine are leagues apart, I can't just sit here and watch you destroy this town. Ichigo was the only one who saw what was happening. Aizen had appeared beside Sakura and delivered a clean cut to her side. Sakura's eyes widened suddenly, as though she had snapped out of a trance. She looked to her side, confusion on her face. How? I admire your valor, Haruno, but unfortunately such foolhardy actions will get you nowhere in a fight where I can control what you sense. Sakura's surprised expression soon morphed into a grin. Got you. The 4th Division officer's hand grabbed onto Aizen's wrist that held his blade. Aizen gave a hum of amusement. Oh, what do you plan on doing? The transformed captain's question was answered by the sudden ripple of a powerful spiritual pressure. Aizen looked up in time to see a figure with a white captain's haori tied around their left arm, sword ready to slice him in two. Ichigo and the 2 Arrancar watched as Aizen was sent to the ground, a gigantic dust cloud being kicked up by the impact. The figure then turned to Sakura. Thanks for the help, Haruno. How bad is the wound? Sakura managed to laugh. Hey. I'll survive. You know Hana Taiko's going to kill me if she sees me like this, but I'll deal with that when it happens. She looked down to city below. I'm going to go heal the espada that were helping us. I think I sense one of them nearby. Be careful. The healer smiled weakly. I tell you the same, but judging from your son, I probably don't have much to worry about. Sakura flew off a ways from the newcomer. Seconds later he spun around, blade blocking Aizen's Kyoku Suigetsu. Isshin Kurosaki. I was wondering when you'd step in. The Kurosaki patriarch smirked. You were expecting me? I guess I should be flattered then, huh? Aizen gave a chuckle. I suppose you believe that you're going to be able to stop me? The former captain shook his head. It's too late for that, Kurosaki. I've already completed my transformation. Isshin's eyes widened as he felt a sudden and abnormal rise in Aizen's Ryotsu. Isshin had been warned by Sakura when he entered the fake town about what Aizen had become, though the details were of course rather sketchy. He seemed to be a hybrid between a hollow, but not quite an Arrancar, and not quite a Vizard either. No, Aizen was different. Great, I was hoping it wouldn't get any worse, either. Dumb thing to hope for, I suppose. Isshin grumbled, holding his Zanpakuto before him, unsure of what to expect. Ichigo looked to his father through his Vizard mask. Part of him expected to suddenly wake up, only to find himself in his bed, sleeping. Isshin Kurosaki was a Shinigami. From the looks of things, a Shinigami captain at some point, if that haori tied around his shoulder was any indication. Who the hell is that? The teen and the two Arrancar beside him turned to see a haggard-looking Stark floating behind them. Nell beamed at the sight of the Primera. Stark-san. Thank goodness, Naruto was right about you being alive. Stark didn't say anything, but continued to look towards the elder Kurosaki. Ichigo noticed and spoke, that's my old man. I don't know why he's here, and I never knew he was a Soul Reaper. But, Ichigo was silent for a few seconds as he gathered his thoughts. I'm sure he had a good reason for all of it. I can only imagine why, so, I won't worry about that right now. So, it appears being a Soul Reaper runs in the family, huh? Stark remarked as he pulled out his pistols. Well, he's tough, but I think Aizen's pulling another transformation on us, look. The group looked to see the carapace on Aizen beginning to crack. The stifling Ryotsu pressed down upon them, and they watched as the shell around Aizen began to dissolve away. Brown hair fell upon Aizen's shoulders, and they were once again looking upon the face of the former 5th Division captain. He now had gray eyes with purple sclera, and his overall body was slimmer than before, though he still had a white cloak of sorts covering his frame. His power, compared to when he first fought the captains, it's... Stark growled in frustration, damn it, none of us are in any shape to take him on. He won't spare us, Stark. Ulquiorra spoke, black wings spread fully as he held a glowing lance in hand. We should help Kurosaki's father. I'm for that idea. Nell seconded. Same here, rang in a third voice. Stark looked to his side to see Barrigan a good distance away from them, black cloak billowing around him, axe in hand. Barrigan? I thought. You thought I was dead? From that weak missile attack? HMMPH. Don't insult me like that, Coyote. I used to be the king of Hueco Mundo, after all. He held his axe loosely at his side. It's about time I pay that damn Shinigami back for what he did to my kingdom. Nell gave a small smile. Still sore about that, are we? Silence, Oderschwenk. Don't think that just because we have a common enemy that you can. Can this wait until after we're done fighting? Stark sighed. Come on, Ichigo's already going on ahead. The Arrancar all looked towards Aizen, and Barrigan let out a growl of annoyance. Right. The sooner we finish off Aizen, the better. Naruto backed away slightly from the two figures standing before him. He was hallucinating. Being stuck alone in this realm by himself must have gotten to him a lot sooner than he expected. Insanity was slowly sinking into his brain, and... He thinks he's going nuts. Kushina. I told you this was risky, commented a tall male blonde. A woman with red hair that ran down the length of her back gave a sigh. Oh, stop talking like that. He's right here. She turned to Naruto and gave a warm smile. Naruto. You're not dreaming, we're real. Naruto gripped Rei de Zoro's by the handle. Why are you here? Minato, a man Naruto bore a striking resemblance to in both hairstyle and color, gave a grin. Easy. We've been a part of your being since the day you were made a jinchuriki. We've been a part of you. Huh? Kushina took a step forward. Naruto finally noticed an ethereal light surrounding his mysterious guests. Naruto. I'm Kushina Uzumaki. Your mother, this is Minato Namikaze. You probably remember him as the Yondaime Hokage. He's your father. For a few minutes they stood there in near silence, the only sounds being Naruto breathing and the quiet sound of the shimmering light surrounding his two supposed parents. He grit his teeth before exhaling sharply, I had alone my parents. His eyes narrowed. How come you're not both in Soul Society or existing as some random hollows in Hueco Mundo? The elemental nations have changed drastically, and the ninja system is no more. So, explain. Minato, or so he was called, spoke. Naruto, as you know, I placed the Kyuubi in you at birth due to circumstances that would take too long to explain at the moment. Just understand that an enemy was threatening your mother and your safety, as well as the entire village of Konoha. We had to place the fox inside of you. Naruto turned to Kushina, who gave a slow nod. It's true, Naruto. It was a hard decision for us, but we had to do it. We both died as a result of that night for different reasons. The Kyuubi used to be inside of me until an enemy removed it from me. I died as a result shortly after it was placed inside you. So, she left the rest of her explanation unsaid. Naruto was able to connect the dots. He surprised himself with how well he was taking all of this into stride. We decided to place a portion of our chakra inside of you. Oddly enough, when you died in that battle against pain, our chakra stuck with you, and became a sort of anchor for your mother's soul. Her soul was in a sort of limbo, I guess you could say. Seeing as hollows and shinigami rarely visited the realm of Konoha at the time, she wasn't in any real danger and wasn't brought to Soul Society. She kind of just wandered. Kushina picked up where Minato left off. So, when you died, well, you were in real pain, from what I could tell after studying your memories. The moment you became a hollow, my soul sort of just integrated into you. One moment I was a wandering spirit. The next I'm inside my son's soul. It was unexpected. Okay, how come I never felt your presence? Naruto asked. You devoured me, Naruto. Kushina replied, smile still on her face. Naruto's eyes widened. Wait, what? You were a newly created hollow. It's not your fault. I was the first soul you ever consumed, which makes sense considering that I was already a part of you. Don't feel bad though, you never actually ate me, but your Ryotsu simply overwhelmed and swallowed me up. Naruto bit his lower lip for a moment before looking to Minato. What about you? How did you end up inside me? Kushina looked to Minato, who nodded to his wife before looking to his son. Kushina and I sort of searched for each other. Huh? How? Minato held Kushina's hand, and Naruto noticed a faint glow from where their fingers met. We resonated to one another. We may have been mere souls within hollows, but seen as a portion of my chakra, which was converted to Ryotsu, was inside of you. Kushina was able to find me and unconsciously guide you to the hollow that had devoured me. What? Naruto, your father had been consumed by a hollow when you became a jinchuriki. While most hollows knew nothing about Hueco Mundo, a select few that were older knew of it and its rich supply of life force held by ninja. Minato managed to attract it with a certain jutsu that worked as hollow bait would. His life force was eaten aside from a small portion left inside of you. After the deed was done with the Kyuubi, the hollow left that world. Wait, that hollow. If it ate you, then it must have also eaten. Minato grinned. Yep. You got Hiruzen Sarutobi, as well as the Shodai Hokage and Naidame as well. Though they're only minuscule amounts of power, they're a part of you. So, why aren't they here as well? Kushina decided to explain. We're only able to do this. She moved her hand about herself and Minato, due to the fact that each of us makes up a part of you. We're able to coexist within you without being devoured completely. Since a part of your father's soul was inside you, when you consumed the hollow that ate him, he was able to reform a complete soul and exist as I do. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose as he thought, I guess that makes sense. But, he looked to his parents and frowned deeply. It's because of me that you both haven't received a proper afterlife. Proper? Minato repeated, laughing. Naruto, we're a part of you. You're our son, our flesh and blood. Spending it with our only child is not a punishment to us. Kushina looked to Minato. We're together, and exist within your own soul, Naruto. If that's considered to be an improper afterlife, then I don't want anything else. She wiped a few stray tears from her eyes. I know you've been through a lot, Naruto. It was lonely growing up, and I regret that we couldn't be there for you during your mortal life. Mom. Naruto started. Naruto, understand that we've always been there for you in spirit. Every battle you fought as a hollow, every time you found a little more power within you. We were there, giving you what we could offer. Kushina was shedding tears freely now. We love you, Naruto. That's why we're here. The media Espada gave a weak smile, his own vision blurring slightly from the moisture in his eyes. So, this is what it's like, huh? To have a family. He looked up, grinning. I'm happy to have finally met my parents. Even if it's after my mortal life, haha. Minato, who had tears pricking the corners of his eyes, laughed. We're both proud of you, Naruto. You become powerful, even without the Kyuubi's added power. Naruto was suddenly caught in the embrace of his mother. He felt her shake a bit as she quietly cried into his chest. Minato walked up, placing an arm on Naruto's shoulder while the other was wrapped around his wife. Slowly, Naruto did likewise, holding onto both his parents as he ignored the temporary blurred vision from crying. His parents' spiritual glow gave off a warmth as he held them both. He noticed. He felt rejuvenated suddenly, ready to take on the world. You better get going so you can help your friends. Minato stated calmly, they're all in need of your strength right now. Yeah. Naruto agreed, that freak Aizen's done something weird to himself thanks to the Hagoromo. I don't know what it was, but it was not right. Kushina piped in, Naruto, there's a trick to escaping this place, and it's relatively simple. There is? Naruto asked, what is it? Well, honestly, you had the right idea a short while ago. Minato answered, "You have to simply cause the boundaries of the Kaha negation to collapse." "What, you mean I just have to use my Ryotsu and destroy this place?" Naruto looked around before scratching his head. "Well, I sort of tried that before." "Not with all of your power," Kushina stated with a grin. "We both know that you have much more power at your disposal." Naruto exhaled deeply. "I guess that's true. I just don't want to exhaust myself before I fight Aizen." "You won't," laughed Minato, "you're our son. You got more energy than you know what to do with. You'll recover quicker than you realize." The blonde Arrancar chuckled. "That's also true." He looked to his parents, his smile drooping slightly. "I'm glad I finally got to meet you too." Kushina brushed a hand over Naruto's cheek. "We'll be with you through all of it. Don't worry. You can do anything if you only believe in yourself." "Haha. Thanks, Mom." Naruto grinned. "I'll be sure to tell Shikamaru and Sakura about you too when I'm all done with Aizen. They'll be happy to hear about this." His parents both held Naruto for a few moments longer before they both let out a sudden flash of light. Naruto was once again by himself, floating in the dark abyss of the Kaha negation. He felt his parents' presence weaken, but in the back of his mind he could still sense them deep within his soul. With renewed determination, Naruto inhaled and exhaled slowly, then let out a wave of Ryotsu. He could feel the pocket universe deflecting his spiritual pressure back at him, fighting to contain him. "It's weakening, Naruto. Keep at it." Naruto closed his eyes and strained to push out more of his power. The reverberations of Ryotsu became weaker and weaker, a clear sign to the blonde that he was starting. T-body began to shake from the strain after about 2 minutes had passed. He began to yell at the top of his lungs as he felt his body reaching its limit. A part of him was tempted to release his resurrection, but he forced himself not to. Any wasted energy would put him at a disadvantage against Aizen. He would break out of this prison without the assistance of his resurrection's power. Slowly but surely, he felt the world around him collapsing. He opened a single eye and saw cracks of light forming around the realm, shards of black falling to the liquid bottom as he tore apart his cage. With a final roar, Naruto released a mighty blast of energy, and the world around him went white. Uishin and Ichigo floated next to each other, both weary and at their limit. Aizen's new form was above and beyond what they had expected. His spiritual pressure was like a barrier, and the Hagoku's powers seemed to only make fighting him all the more difficult. Ichigo turned to the 4 Arrancar that had joined up with his father to fight. Ulquiorra was currently regenerating an arm while Nell was struggling to keep her lance up. Barragan, who kept himself at a distance, was gripping his axe tightly while directing what Ichigo assumed to be a death glare towards Aizen. Stark was now holding 2 blades made of blue spiritual power in either hand while several wolves made of similar energy surrounded him. "Do you understand now?" Aizen asked. "I am above all of you. I've ascended past the limits of both Hollow and Shinigami." He held Kyoka Suigetsu at his side, his posture relaxed and confident. "No matter what you may throw at me, I will not be taken down." "You call what you've done ascension?" Nell questioned. "No, Aizen. You've destroyed what made you who you are. You've given up what made you strong to start with and abandoned the humanity in you. Look at you. You've given into hollowification, and are slowly becoming more and more of a monster." "Monster, you say?" Nell felt a sharp pain, and watched as her arm that held her weapon fell to the ground below. "Ah. Aizen flicked his blade, blood flying off its tip. "Right, does a being that was born from a hollow have to call me a monster? I gave you a spot of purpose. I gave you reason. Without me, you all would have continued to roam Hueco Mundo as mere abominations waiting to meet your demise by the sword of a Shinigami or the jaws of a stronger hollow." Nell's vision began to blur as she plummeted to the town below. "Forgive me, everyone. It seems I wasn't strong enough." "Nell!" Stark shouted. He charged towards Aizen, blades glowing with Ryotsu. Ulquiorra flexed his wings before doing likewise, lance in hand. Aizen blocked Stark's attacks with a single arm, his other charging up Aikido. "For the Primera, I must admit you've come to disappoint me, Stark." Stark ignored the taunts from Aizen, and focused on trying to find an opening. Blades clashed against one another, but Aizen seemed to show no weakness in his defense for the Primera. From the corner of his eye, he saw a green light heading towards Aizen. The hollowified Shinigami blurred away as Ulquiorra's Lanza de Relampago shot off towards a nearby building before exploding, clearing several city blocks in the process. Now Aizen was fighting off 2 Espada-level Arrancar, smirking all the while. He flexed his open hand that was charging up a Kido spell, and then aimed his hand towards Ulquiorra, Hado number 73. Soren Sokatsui. Ulquiorra's eyes were blinded as bright flames of blue smashed into him, knocking him away with enormous force. Stark cursed under his breath as he watched the Quadra fall, knocked out cold by Aizen's powerful Kido. "Stark, move!" Aizen and the Primera looked to see 2 wolves suddenly clamp down on the transformed captain's feet. Stark flew back as the wolves exploded, pillars of blue light shooting into the sky as Aizen was caught in the blast. 3 more wolves remained by Stark's side. He gave them a stern look. "Lillinette, let's rejoin." I'm not too keen on you and I being separated while fighting Aizen. For a few moments, Lynette looked ready to argue. The trio of wolves gave a growl, but upon seeing Stark frown, they stopped, and formed into one wolf before vaporizing and returning to Stark. Thanks, Lynette. I don't want Naruto to come back only to find out that I was letting you go and destroy yourself by blowing up constantly. The gun in Stark's right-hand side, you're just a big baby, Stark. Whatever, let's stay focused. Stark let his swords vanish and pulled out his 2 pistols from their holsters, ready. Ready. The two waited for the clouds to clear up. Aizen was obviously unharmed, judging from the look on his face. He gave an amused smile to the Primera before speaking. You managed to catch me off guard. It wasn't strong enough, though. Stark prepared to engage with Aizen once more, but he stopped as a giant blast of water smashed into Aizen. Looking down, Stark saw Harabelle standing on the roof of a building, breathing heavily but still standing. Her gash she had received earlier appeared to be healed, and he could only assume that it was thanks to the Shinigami medic that had jumped in earlier. Harabelle was beside Stark a moment later. Sorry for taking so long. Sakura-san insisted on healing my wounds before I returned to battle. I figured as much. Stark aimed his pistols forward. I don't think that attack of yours did anything, though. Not surprised, it wasn't that effective against him before he transformed, either. Sasuke Aizen, now soaking wet, watched the Tercera and Primera with the same confident smirk on his lips. Harabelle, you managed to recover nicely thanks to Haruno-san. Harabelle raised her weapon and began generating a swirling mass of water around herself. Aizen. At one point in my life I would have followed you to hell and back. I only wish I had been more aware of your true goals earlier in my life as an espada. So you view me as a person who is evil? I have no right to place such titles as good or evil on anyone. You are power hungry though, and going beyond what you should. I never saw you as a philosopher, Harabelle. The Tercera grit her teeth. You're not evil, but you go against what I believe in. Really, what exactly do you believe in that makes you raise your blade against me, then? Aizen questioned. You wish to take the lives of innocent mortals so that you may create a key to reach the Soul King. No amount of death can be considered a just means to an end. Aizen shook his head. You look at this from too small of a perspective, Harabelle. I don't blame you, nor do I blame anyone else, for being unable to comprehend my plan. Aizen raised his blade so that it was pointing upward in front of him. Failed creations like yourselves are of no use to me anymore, though. I will end your lives here, and after I've taken all of the souls necessary to make the Oken, I'll proceed to take over Soul Society. You're insane. Doing that will destroy the balance between worlds. No, I'm merely stepping over set limits. The spot that would rule over the heavens is vacant. No one has ever sought to claim it. I, however, will claim that seat as my own. He held out a hand and grasped at the air. While the Shinigami are content with obeying the orders of the Central 46 and being mindless drones, I always strove to go beyond that. Aizen's smirk became more of a grin. Is it such a horrid thing to want power that is within your grasp, Harabelle? Absolute power corrupts absolutely, the Tercera retorted. A cliché statement from a narrow-minded individual. Aizen stated as he began walking a circle around Harabelle and Stark. I gave you all a chance to follow me to glory. You made your choices. Harabelle raised her blade before blasting a torrent of water at her former commander. Aizen blurred away before the water ever reached him. The Tercera instinctively raised her blade, and watched as it snapped in two as Aizen cut through it. Stark pulled the triggers, let loose a volley of Sero. Aizen dashed away, avoiding the blasts with relative ease. Aizen felt himself slow down suddenly. He turned in time to see Baragon blasting a miasma of his Respira in his direction. Aizen forced himself to move, well aware of the danger behind the Segunda's powers. Gran. Aizen whirled around to see a yellow light being emitted from Harabelle. Ray. About 45 degrees to his left was Stark, holding up a single hand while forming a blue ball of Ryotsu as well. Sero, Baragon, Harabelle, and Stark shot red, yellow, and blue superpowered blasts respectively, all of them colliding with Aizen. The shockwave emitted caused some of the closer towers to crumble away as the three different colored blasts formed a single explosion of white. Off in the distance, Unohana stood with Izan, watching the battle with observant eyes. Unohana Taiko, soccer is over, I know, Izan. We must trust that she's taking care of herself and the others. The 4th Division captain looked to the slowly recovering Shinigami and Arrancar who had fought. Our job is to heal, though. Unohana Taiko, I can't just stand here while Sakura. Unohana placed a gentle hand on her lieutenant's shoulder. Izan, please. I need you to be strong for me. For everyone. They need you right now. In the worst case scenario, we're in charge of making sure the survivors are capable of escaping from Aizen so that we can regroup and gather strength until we can plan another attack. Izan sighed. Yamamoto Sotaichu was taken out, though. If he was defeated, how can we hope to defeat Aizen? We have to have faith in our own abilities, that's how. The two glanced over to Apache, who was walking on her own, albeit with a slight limp. Apache-san, Please don't strain yourself. Apache stopped walking upon Yunohana's request. Sorry, Yunohana-san. She leaned against a slab of a fallen building. I just don't want to hear any doubting from anyone. Aizen's strong, sure, but he's on his own against all of us. Yunohana Taiko. The group turned to the voice of Shikamaru, who was followed by Rangaku and Hiyori, who were carrying the beaten forms of Grimmjow, Jiruchi, and Mosqueda. We found them lying near Yamamoto Sotaichu's body. The terminology didn't escape Yunohana's ears. Body? Aye. Shikamaru looked down. Yunohana Taiko. I approached him after that one Arankar that sealed away his flames exploded and he used the Kido. And Aizen must have escaped the attack. I didn't sense a shred of Ryotsu from the Sotaichu. If someone had dropped a pin right then and there, it would have been heard loud and clear by all those awake and aware. I see. Rangaku spoke next. Yunohana Taiko. Seeing as Kyoraku Taiko and Yukataki Taiko are both inactive, I believe that leaves you in charge of our group. All eyes were now upon Yunohana. For what felt like an eternity, she stood there, unmoving, her eyes fixed upon the distant fight taking place. Please retrieve Yamamoto Sotaichu's body and continue to search for any survivors. Shikamaru and Rangaku both bowed before setting down Grimmjow and vanishing with a quick flash step. Hiyori stayed a moment longer, her gaze falling upon the unconscious group of wizards. She turned around and vanished, likely to continue her search as well. Aizen's still fighting. The 4th Division captain looked towards the slowly rising form of Grimmjow. She frowned and made her way towards the SXTA. You shouldn't move. Please sit while I tend to your injuries. I can take care of him, Yunohana-san. The Shinigami captain watched as Orihime made her way towards the Espada, and felt her frown turn into a small smile. Very well, Orihime. Please don't overextend your strength, though. Orihime gave a beaming smile to the captain. I won't. The teenager began to summon her Soden Kiss-hun, smiling as she met the gaze of the Espada. Grimmjow quirked an eyebrow before looking away. What are you so happy about? Well, someone needs to be positive at a time like this. TCH, that's a stupid reason. He noticed her wince a bit as she continued working her magic on his wounds, but maybe it's not such a bad idea. Grimmjow. Do you think Naruto is alright? Naruto? Grimmjow laughed. That dolt is too damn stubborn to kick the bucket while the rest of us are still sticking our necks out for this world. Yeah, he's alright. Orihime looked down a bit, smiling wider. Good. I saw Nell and Ulquiorra arrive, and then Naruto was with them, but Aizen trapped him in some kind of teleporting device, and he was gone. Kaha negation. Grimmjow and Orihime noticed Mila Rose approach them, and Grimmjow grunted. Aizen stooped to that kind of technique. Huh? He shook his head. Yeah, Naruto will be back before you know it. Mila Rose gave a nod. I've been told by Harabel-sama that Espada-level Arankar can escape it if they wish due to their high Ryotsu levels. She watched as Orihime continued healing Grimmjow, moving her glowing bubble of spiritual power over his legs, though, I have to admit, it's kind of scary without him here right now. I know. Orihime spoke. Naruto told me to be strong though. He said that I had powers that were very valuable and special. That's why I'm here, and not in the front lines, still. Grimmjow noticed her voice drop a bit. What? I can't help but wonder how different this would have been if Ichigo and the others didn't need to go to Hueco Mundo to rescue me. Maybe if I had just shut up with that kind of talk. Orihime looked to the SXTA, who was slowly sitting up fully. Well, it's true. If I was stronger I. Grimmjow grabbed Orihime by the collar of her dress, pulling her so that she was inches from his face. It's not your damn fault, alright? Jeesh, I swear. You women can be so annoying with the way you upset yourselves. Hell, if it wasn't for you I'd probably still not have an arm. Hell, I'd be dead. The orange-haired teen looked away for a moment before smiling. I guess that's a good point. It was annoying watching over you, sure. But you're not that bad. At least you don't gripe all the time like Apache does. Hey, Orihime struggled not to laugh. It was almost surreal. Laughing while in a war zone. She never expected to be in the middle of such a dangerous place, healing all the injured. Strangely enough, even though she was afraid, she found that she wasn't concerned about her own safety as much as she was for those around her. She wanted to protect those she cared about, and found strength in those thoughts. Grimmjow felt a hand touch his, and upon glancing down he saw that it was Orihime's. He was about to ask her what she was thinking, but she beat him to the punch. You're a nice guy, Grimmjow. Underneath all that rough and hard exterior, I can see that there's a real reason why Naruto and you are such good friends. The fact that you continue to protect us is only further proof that I'm right about you. The SXTA felt his face heating up ever so slightly and growled while pulling his hand away. Yeah right. Like I give a damn about that dolt, or any of you. Orihime laughed. It's okay, Grimmjow. I'll keep your secret. TCH, there isn't any secret to keep. Mila Rose chuckled before walking past, giving a teasing grin to Grimmjow as she made her way towards Apache and Sun when she was out of earshot. Grimmjow spoke up. Hey, Orihime. Orihime took note that it was one of the first times he had addressed her by name, and the way he said it was softer than his usual gruff tone that he used. Thanks, also, I don't think you're weak. People like you aren't weak, they just don't fight the same way Naruto I do. Orihime blushed a bit. Oh, well, thank you, Grimjow. Yeah, just don't go reading into it. Getsuga Tenshou. Getsuga Tenshou. Isshin and Ichigo both launched waves of concentrated ryotsu towards Aizen, who deflected them both with a swipe of his blade. The father and son deuced them, and jetted towards their opponent. Why is that you continue to fight me? You're like cockroaches. Squash one and another one creeps out of the wall. Isshin Kurosaki faded into view behind Aizen, swinging in Jetsu in an attempt to bifurcate him from the abdomen. Whirling around, Aizen's Kyoku Suigetsu met in Jetsu, and the two created sparks. Ichigo was at Aizen's side, his black Zanpakuto thrust forward to stab Aizen in the side of his chest. Unfortunately, Ichigo's blade was stopped as it made contact with Aizen's body. He blinked through his mask. What? Have neither of you noticed? Isshin's gaze narrowed as he held Aizen's blade at bay with his own. Noticed what? Aizen clicked his tongue against his teeth as though he was scolding a child. So neither of you haven't. What a shame. What the hell are you babbling about? Noticed what? I'm talking about the difference in our powers. How do you think you were unable to pierce my skin just a moment ago? He gave them a moment to digest what he was getting at. It's simple. If a Shinigami's Ryotsu is great enough, he can simply prevent his opponent from harming him with his spiritual pressure, using it as a sort of armor. It's a lesson all Shinigami learn in the academy, and apparently neither of you retained or ever learned about it. Aizen's blade flashed in front of Ichigo suddenly, and a second passed before his mask cracked while blood sprayed out from his chest. GGGH. Gah. Ichigo. Don't get distracted now, Isshin. Isshin felt his sword buckle under a sudden pressure before cracking, and a sudden pain washed over his body. Aizen walked past the Kurosaki patriarch, who began falling with his son. I had expected more out of the two of you. You're a Shinigami and wizard, though, so perhaps my expectations were too high. The sound of metal cutting through air rung in Aizen's ears, and he moved in time to catch Baragon's Grand Kata, the giant axe that he held in his resurrection form. Aizen's smirk remained on his face as he pushed Baragon back, still harboring a grudge. I see. Aizen. I vowed ages ago that I would kill you for taking my kingdom from me. Today, I will do just that. Really? Aizen held his sword in front of him, pointing it towards the Segunda. Be my guest, then. Baragon vanished via Sonido, reappearing behind Aizen. Axe clashed with sword, Baragon laughing as he struck Aizen's Zanpakuto. You're foolish to be attacking me so closely, Aizen. Normally, I'd agree, however, I believe you're forgetting something. Baragon's eye sockets glowed as he watched the skin of Aizen's hands decaying due to the effects of Baragon's resurrection. This was to be expected, but something else was occurring as well. With the decaying skin came new, healthy skin, replacing that which was being eaten away by Baragon's accelerating aging power. How are you doing that? No living being can escape my power. Not entirely true, Baragon. I have to admit, I was worried about encountering you at first, but the Haugokus will seems to have the power to override your own abilities. The Haugoku, in simple terms, won't allow me to die by your hand. Impossible. Baragon growled. Not for me. Baragon felt steel cut through his skeletal body. He coughed, and saw the lower half of his body falling in away from him. He roared in fury before throwing his axe at Aizen, who merely sidestepped the bladed weapon, which fell harmlessly to the city below. Curse you, Aizen. I'll take you with me to the grave, I swear it. A blast of respirit quickly traveled through the air, surrounding Aizen. The former captain merely chuckled before raising his blade and swiping at the gas. It parted, and Aizen flew through the opening before aiming his open palm towards the falling Espada. Your powers are easily the most dangerous, Baragon. I suppose that would only be fitting for the former king of Hueco Mundo. However, your reign died the moment you looked upon my blade. A ball of white light formed in Aizen's hands before it erupted in a beam of light, making its way towards the fallen Segunda. Harabel and Stark watched in disbelief as the Segunda was taken down by Aizen, to go and defy time itself. Son of a bitch. Stark muttered to himself, we can't fight that. We don't have a choice, Stark, we're the last one standing. Aizen turned his gaze to the last able combatants. This is a familiar scene. The Tercera and Primera, standing together, hoping they can somehow achieve victory. He waved a hand over the smoking ruins of the fake Karakura. Look at the scene before you. All this destruction was caused by your struggle against me. But what did it give you? He smiled. Nothing. I've defeated the boy who was not under my Kyoku Suigetsu's control. I've taken down the leader of the Godate 13, as well as all the captains who stood against me. He laughed. How do you two honestly think that you'll stand a ghost of a chance against? There was a sudden explosion, and air seemed to warp before a flash of light blinded the three combatants. Raw, an all too familiar spiritual pressure smashed down upon the area. Harabel and Stark recognized it immediately as that of Naruto Uzumaki. Sure enough, the glowing light vanished, and there stood Naruto, Ryotsu ebbing off of him in waves. He drew his blade, took in the scenery, and finally found Aizen. "Welcome back, Naruto-kun. I'm afraid that this match is near its end, though. You arrived a bit late, and most of the fighters participating have been taken out." Naruto let out a few ragged breaths before finally calming down. The media espada glanced over to Stark and Harabel before returning his gaze, meeting the eyes of Aizen. "That was a pretty nasty trick you pulled on me back there." Naruto raised his blade up so the point was aimed towards the sky above, "Though, I think I know the reason why you didn't want me to interfere, Aizen." The former captain remained smiling, intrigued by Naruto's sudden entrance. "The reason is because you're afraid of me. Deep down, you're afraid I'll be the one to overpower and defeat you. It's the reason why you always had me under the command of one of the higher-ranked espada. You feared that if I wasn't kept in check, I'd rebel." "Quite the arrogant reasoning you have there," Aizen commented, "though it is partially true. I knew that you were a wild spirit the moment I made you one of my subordinates. You had that air of morality to you that was unfitting for an Arrancar. You believed in values that went against those of the majority of Arrancar. You liked peace, and wished to improve the spiritual world." They stared each other down for several moments, Aizen noticing that despite the fact that Naruto was under Kyoka Suigetsu's control, the blonde was indeed maintaining perfect eye contact with him. "That's good to know. It's helped clear up a few things for me." "Were you searching for a reason to fight me, Naruto?" inquired the transformed man. "Truthfully, I was hoping that you'd remain in my service. You have more potential than the rest of the Arrancar. Not only that, but your resurrection, as we both know, seems to have no set limits." "You really talk too much, Aizen. I'm not going to change my mind, just so you know." Naruto held his blade high. "Ravage, Rei de Zoro's, Safety Makola." A red and orange pillar of light shot into the sky as Naruto called forth his seven-tailed form. Armor formed along his body as his tails grew out, claws flexing as his Ryotsu increased exponentially. Ulquiorra was right. Naruto's gotten stronger since he last fought. Stark noted, "Looks like that theory of Naruto continually adapting and improving after every serious fight is true." The media espada shot off towards Aizen, tails waving behind him as he closed the distance between himself and Aizen within milliseconds. He spun his body around, tails smashing into Kyoka Suigetsu. Once again, Naruto was making actual contact with Aizen's blade. "Bet you're curious, huh?" Aizen's gaze met with unable to see through Kyoka Suigetsu. Naruto gripped Kyoka Suigetsu and laughed. His eyes went from bright sapphire to a blood red. "I have a secret. You won't learn about it, though. I'm not giving you the advantage." Naruto's bladed wrist swiped at his opponent, Aizen blurring away before reappearing behind the blonde. The Arrancar raised three tails, catching Kyoka Suigetsu's edge, preventing injury to the back. Three more tails lashed out, striking Aizen back and into several buildings. The former captain seemed unharmed, though, for seconds later he was back in the air, smiling. "Perhaps I underestimated you, Naruto. It's true, though. I wanted to keep you out of my way while I took out Soul Society and those rebelling against me. Still, even with you here, there is no hope of a mere Arrancar being able to reach the level one half." Aizen let out a powerful wave of spiritual pressure, one that even Naruto had a hard time standing up against. "This form is indeed powerful, but the Haugoku's desire to protect me makes all your efforts futile." "The Haugoku, huh? So this thing has a mind of its own now, does it?" "In layman's terms, I believe that would suffice for an answer. It manifests the heart's desires, and makes them reality to those within its vicinity. The stronger the will and the being who desires for something, the more capable the Haugoku is of granting said desire. So it's like a wishing stone for the powerful." Naruto snickered. "It's kind of pathetic. You needed a tool that wasn't yours to begin with in order to gain more power. You reached a pinnacle, and weren't satisfied, so instead of trying to find a way to break that wall down with your own power, you decided to go and take the easy way out." "Perhaps I misspoke, Naruto-kun. You see, the Haugoku let me gain this power. It wanted me to. It saw that I had the strength to do so and made it reality." For a moment the media espada stood there, motionless aside from the slight quirking of an eyebrow. He slowly formed a smirk before he laughed. "I never liked you, Aizen. I respected you in the beginning, didn't really trust you, but I did respect you. I heard rumors of what you did to take over Hueco Mundo. Not sure how accurate they were, but now I can see how you got to where you are today." "Is that so?" "Yeah, you did it through lies and half-assed promises. I wanted merely to have power in the beginning and to keep myself from being eaten away by my own power. You gave me that, and as much as I detest you, I am thankful for that." Naruto pointed a finger at the man before as he continued. "Still, I always knew that there was something about you that I just didn't like. I know what that thing is now." "Really?" Aizen replied. "What would that be?" Naruto grinned while forming an orb of energy at the tip of his finger. "Everything." A stream of red shot out from Naruto, its size almost tenfold that of a normal Sero. Aizen's eyes widened before he raised his blade, and slammed it into the energy blast. The energy blast slowly pushed the Shinigami Hollow Hybrid back, but he was able to keep himself from being overwhelmed, much to Naruto's chagrin. A flash of light pierced through the supersized Sero, almost hitting Naruto as it careened through the air. Naruto launched himself at the former Shinigami captain, letting out a battle cry as he charged up another ball of energy in his right hand. Hado number 88, Harayuchikaikoku Shintenreiho. Naruto cursed, his words lost in a roar of blue electrical energy. The high-level Kido spell shot right into Naruto, sending him back several hundred yards before he smashed through several buildings and stopped in a pile of rubble, smoking and charred. Gah! That stings, Naruto grumbled, struggling to get up. He may have gotten stronger, but anyone who got as close as he did to a Kido spell in the high 80s was going to get hurt. He took note that his armor had cracked and broken off in multiple areas, and one of his tails was missing a large segment near the end. He coughed, the taste of ash on his tongue making him gag a bit. He would need to give himself a few minutes to fully recover. He just hoped Aizen was going to take his sweet time getting to him to see the damage he had caused. Stark and Harabel both moved in front of Aizen the moment he blasted Naruto away with the powerful Kido spell. Naruto was hurt, but he would recover. As long as they gave him time, Naruto would be back on his feet and ready to fight once more. Your persistence is beginning to annoy me, Aizen stated. You both are well aware of how one-sided a fight against me would be. I've cut the two of you down before, yet you insist on continuing to come back for further punishment. Stark shrugged his shoulders in response. I guess we're just slow learners. Aizen's mouth drew into a thin line. Very well. Seeing as you're both so eager to die, I'll grant you both that request. I'll kill you like the hollows you are. Stark and Harabel flickered away as Aizen came at them. Weapons clashed faster than the mortal eye could see, and within a few seconds Harabel was seen flying back, blood spraying up from her stomach to her sternum. She coughed up crimson before plummeting to the ground like a stone. Harabel, Stark whirled around, cursing the situation they had gotten into. Aizen, the Primera ignored the deep gash running along his left leg, and swung one of his energy blades at the man before him, cutting through air as the illusion of Aizen shattered before him. Shit. He felt steel run through his chest before twisting and cutting through his side. He clutched his chest while his mask fragments began to chip away, energy swords vanishing, and his Ryotsu level suddenly dropping. You may have gotten up the first time I struck you down, Coyote Stark, this time will be your last. Aizen. Stark clutched his pistol and struggled to pull the trigger, only to feel the point of Kyoku Suigetsu ram through his shoulder. The Primera cried out in pain as Aizen ripped his blade out of his body. The pistol he had tried to fire from began to vanish as Stark's resurrection began to fade. Farewell, Coyote Stark and Lilynette Gingerback. Stark's eyes closed as he fell to the ground. He looked the remaining pistol, and slowly let go. Lilynette. Stark. No, he smiled as he felt the wind rush through his hair as he continued to descend to the ground. Images of his friends and the family he had adopted over the decades ran through his mind. I always feared that I would die alone. I guess I managed to avoid that. Thank you, everyone. For a brief moment, the pistol in the Primera's hand gave a soft, blue-colored glow as Stark's life force dwindled away. Then he hit the pavement, and did not move. Coyote Stark, the Primera Espada, had died with a smile on his face. Naruto had seen it. He had been flying towards the two, hoping to stop them from getting further injuries, telling himself that he needed to stop them before it was too late. He felt his stomach clench as Harabel was cut down, only for Stark to do likewise seconds later. Naruto's eyes were stuck on the two bodies below. He couldn't feel a shred of Ryotsu from either of them. He felt their Ryotsu levels clearly moments ago, only for them to drop off his mental radar. No, Harabel. Stark. His thoughts began to wander. Who else had died in his absence? Where was Nell? Ulquiorra? Where was Grimmjow, Ichigo, and the rest of Soul Society's forces? Was he the only one left? It was inevitable for them, Naruto-kun. They were weak, yet insisted on getting in my way. Naruto wasn't listening. He heard nothing but a ringing in his ears. Everyone was gone. He couldn't feel anyone else. I failed. Aizen cocked his head to the side. You're thunderstruck by how easily I killed them, aren't you? I can't blame you, honestly. You formed a bond with them, which was an error on your part. The strong should stand alone, unless they wish to have those weaker than them. Paris's eyes slowly locked with Aizen's. That damned smile. That damned mocking smile he always had on his face. He wanted to rip off that damn face of his and shove it down the bastard's throat and kill. RRRRAGH. Aizen was blown back by Naruto's Ryotsu, smirking as he witnessed Naruto's spiritual energy become visible. So, this is what you've been hiding from me, Uzumaki. Naruto screamed for all he was worth. He screamed at the loss of his comrades, his family, he screamed for the loss of Nell, for the injustice of the world, and for the cruelty Aizen dealt to those who resisted. He screamed for being too careless, and letting others get hurt instead of letting them in on his plan to overthrow Aizen. He screamed for being stupid, for not being strong enough. He screamed because he wanted revenge. 7 tails waved like flames of ethereal fire as glowing red irises looked to Aizen. Sasuke Aizen, before this battle is done, I will destroy you. Sakura shook as he felt Naruto's killer intent flood the area. While it wasn't directed at her, it certainly wasn't making her feel all that safe either. She leapt over a slab of upturned road and ducked under fallen lamp before reaching a patient she had just tended to a short time ago. Harabel-san. She barely sensed it, and followed the residue of the Tercera's Ryotsu just before Naruto flooded the plane in his own crushing spiritual pressure. She slid on her knees as she began channeling energy into her hands before performing a healing spell. Harabel, hold on, stay with me. Harabel's eyes fluttered open, her breathing shallow and raspy. Haharu, and don't talk, you're in critical condition right now. Sakura shouted over the deafening boom of Naruto's Ryotsu being released. Harabel, I know it's hard for you to do so, but you must stay awake, alright? Harabel felt Sakura's Kido spell mend her chest, and her breathing became easier. Naruto's fighting. Yes, and he's pretty pissed off, Sakura replied. She looked up to the media espada, then back down to see Harabel closing her eyes. Harabel, don't fall asleep on me. Harabel's eyes opened suddenly. You need to remain awake. Talk to me, alright? Anything you want, I'll listen. Is Stark alright? Stark? Sakura frowned. I haven't found him yet. His Ryotsu dropped sharply, but there's still a chance. Sakura moved her hands down to the worst part of the wound inflicted upon Harabel. I remember when Naruto was made my Fraccione. Stark. Ichi told me that. Naruto's a good kid. And that. I was very lucky to have him under my command. Sakura was half listening, half concentrating on the large gash on the Tercera's body. You're Naruto's superior? No. Well, yes. But he's surpassed me. He's always been so strong. Sakura gave a weak smile. I know what you mean. Harabel smiled as she watched the bright orange light being emitted from the blonde above them. He's going to win this fight. I know it. I hope so. Sakura added. I believe in him. Harabel continued. He's never liked fighting for no reason. He hates bloodshed, but if someone's life is on the line, he'll get serious. Sakura found herself laughing. I think he's already getting serious, Harabel. He is. But he's never been this strong before. It's terrifying. The Tercera closed her eyes for a moment as Sakura's Kido mended more of her lacerations up. If he fights with the same determination that he always has, Aizen won't stand a chance. Aizen leaned back as a red orb grazed against his bangs before descending to the pseudo-town below. There was a brief flash of light before a massive pillar of red energy shot up to the sky, knocking down several of the smaller towers nearby and vaporizing anything within the blast radius. Naruto's 7 tails flicked back and forth in agitation as he looked at Aizen with a glare that could cut through diamonds. 7 small orbs of light formed at the tips of the Arrancar's tails as he stayed in place. You're keeping your distance. Naruto began moving floating towards his enemy at a deliberately slow pace. That's a good sign. You obviously aren't comfortable with close combat against me right now. I may be powerful, Naruto-kun, but I'm not a fool. The media espada smirked. You deciding to attack my friends has me thinking otherwise. Aizen disappeared as Naruto's tails began whipping the red orbs of energy towards him. Naruto's red irises followed the former captain's movements as he evaded the volley of fire. As long as I can keep him on the defense, I'll be able to wear him down. The blonde vanished from view suddenly, only to reappear on a random rooftop with his foot smashing into Aizen's stomach. Gah! Aizen felt a jolt of pain run through his entire body as he forced his arm up to block Naruto's bladed wrists. Hey! Impressive speed, Naruto-kun. Plenty more where that came from, Aizen. The building exploded as a dome of red engulfed it. Aizen zipped onto a nearby roof, frowning as he watched the vanishing explosion. I don't recall him ever being this fast before. He always relied heavily on defense and his physical strength in a fight. Aizen Taiko, you sure it's good to be fighting Naruto by yourself? Aizen looked over his shoulder. Jin. The former 3rd Division captain smiled his typical foxish smile. Naruto's gotten a lot stronger from the looks of things. Huh? Kind of scary. There's no need to fret. I can sense another change ready to occur within me at any moment. The Hagoromo's evolving as we speak. My concern for Naruto's power has led to find a way to improve my own powers. Really? Jin cocked his head to the side. Well, I hope it works soon. Oop, here he comes. Jin Flash stepped away seconds before the entire roof caved in from a massive impact. Naruto's fist was implanted where Aizen had been moments ago, smoking from the heat generated upon collision with the concrete. He looked up to see Aizen flying towards him. Zanpakuto thrusting forward. Naruto whipped 3 of his tails at the sword, creating sparks as the two forces met. The two eventually pushed each other back, skidding to a halt in midair. "I must thank you, Naruto-kun. Because of you, the Hagoromo was able to adapt and give me more strength. It wishes to protect its master, and what better way to do so than give its master more power?" Naruto grimaced as he saw Aizen Ryotsu become visible. Another transformation? Damn it, I can't keep up with him at this pace. Aizen's irises vanished, now just pure black sclera visible. A hole began to form in his chest while a cross-like structure formed in the center, holding the Hagoromo within it. A diamond-shaped object appeared on his forehead. The white robes he was adorned in flared out towards his feet as 3 sets of wings erupted from his back. Aizen was then engulfed in a blast of spiritual energy, blinding Naruto for a few seconds. When the Arrancar regained his sight, he felt his breathing hitch as Aizen stood before him, refreshed and unscathed from their fight. "He's completely healed himself, just like a resurrección," Naruto stated aloud. What the hell is he? Any further thoughts were interrupted as Aizen suddenly got behind Naruto, Zanpakuto slashing across his back. The blonde growled in pain as he put some distance between himself and Aizen. He could feel his Ryotsu already working its way to his wound, healing it as fast as his body would allow. "Interesting," Aizen stated, looking at his blade. "I didn't even put that much strength into that swing, yet it managed to pierce your armor." Naruto cursed himself for letting it go this far. He had tried to keep himself from going overboard out of fear of sucking others into the fight, but now it cost him. "Looks like I've got to use it." Aizen looked to the blonde. "Oh? You have a plan? By all means, try what you wish, Naruto-kun. I wish to test the extent of these powers, and so far you've proven to bonnet I've had thus far." "You just spout the most arrogant crap, don't you?" Naruto inquired with an annoyed scowl. "Fine, you've got yourself a deal, Aizen." Naruto's muscles flexed for a few seconds. "Don't blame me when you're on the ground dead. It was your choice." Naruto began to call forth more power, tails waving as his Ryotsu began to crawl up to new heights. 8 tails will probably put me on par with him even if he's still holding back, at that moment. I'll have to make this as quick as possible. Calling forth this form so soon after my fight with Yami is huge risk, and I can't trust him to let me continue gathering power without trying to kill me. Sure enough, Naruto felt a presence behind him. He looked forward to see that Aizen was gone, and a moment later he spun around, wrist blades blocking Kyoku Suigetsu. The traitor of Soul Society was smiling as he pressed against Naruto's slowly cracking blades. "Good work, Naruto. You didn't drop your guard." "Of course I didn't. You're a lying bastard. That insult has grown wearisome, Naruto-kun." Aizen commented, "I'm afraid I have no intention of letting you release more power. I witnessed Ulquiorra's segunda etapa as he calls it, and if your power-up is anything like his, it could prove to be a costly error later on." Steel whizzed past Naruto's cheek, nicking his earlobe as he dodged Kyoku Suigetsu. The blonde tried to move back, but felt a fresh cut form on his stomach as Aizen's new form proved to be above his own skill and ability. Naruto crossed his arms as Kyoku Suigetsu slammed into them. One of his blades chipped further before breaking off, and the blonde was pushed back by the former captain's sheer strength. Before he knew it, several more cuts appeared on his body, and he barely managed to raise his tails up in time to block a vertical slash that would have likely cost him his face. "It's a pity to see such a powerful being like yourself being defeated, Naruto-kun. Though, this is only to further attest to my own strength." Aizen pointed a finger at the blonde. Several beams of light spinning around the tip as a ball of energy formed. "Farewell, Naruto Uzumaki. You were a worthy foe, but still not strong enough to challenge me." Naruto called up what Ryotsu he gathered in hopes of creating a buffer between himself and whatever attack Aizen was about to use. Naruto winced as the light from Aizen intensified, the Ryotsu becoming too much for him to stand against. A sudden flash of light caused Aizen's attack to be interrupted. Naruto blinked as he saw a flash of blood fly out from Aizen's chest. 2 more flashes were seen as Aizen's arm fell to his side, limp and useless. Aizen whirled to his left only to have a blast of red light smash into his face, sending him back a few feet. Who had attacked Aizen? Naruto had thought himself to be alone in this fight, but... Phew, that was a close one. Naruto, you ought to be more careful, don't you think? Naruto turned towards one of the few nearby buildings that was still erect. There stood 3 figures, 2 that Naruto hadn't expected to see this late in the fight, and one that was causing his mind to spin. Kazuki Urahara, Yoruichi Shiwan, and Jin Ichimaru all stood in a ready stance, Jin's sword pointed towards Aizen. "Jin," Naruto inquired, "What? Where are you?" "I'll explain later, alright? We've kind of got bigger matters to worry about, so how about you get back to gathering that power of yours?" Aizen glared down at the 3, Kazuki Urahara and Yoruichi Shiwan. "I expected you 2 to be here." He turned his gaze towards the 3rd interloper, Jin. "I always suspected this would happen." Jin smiled, "Really? Well, that takes away all the fun from this fight then, doesn't it?" The silver-haired man turned to Naruto. "Well, what are you standing there for?" Aizen flew towards Naruto, only for Yoruichi to intercept him. I don't think so. A kick that shook the area connected with Aizen's face. He was sent back a few yards while the armor on the Shihoin's legs cracked. She grumbled something under her breath before looking back towards Naruto. Stop wasting time, Naruto. The others are depending on you as well. He blinked. You three don't stand a chance. Yoruichi snorted as though she heard a bad joke. So, you think I'm going to sit here and let this go on like it is? I have a grudge against this jerk too. You know. She faced forward as Kazuki and Jin, who were now fighting Aizen. I'm a bit surprised about Jin as well, though, but that's not important at the moment. If he's been planning on this the whole time, then that's good enough for me. Alright. Naruto closed his eyes. I'll need about 3 minutes. Got it. Yoruichi nodded. By the way, Nell wanted me to tell you that she's alright. Nell was alive? Naruto's eye widened to a comical level. She is? Yoruichi laughed. Man, she was right. What do you mean? Naruto inquired. She was watching you as she was being healed by Izen Katetsu of the 4th Division. She felt something wrong in your Ryotsu while you were fighting. She believed you thought she was dead, and thought that was the cause. Naruto looked down and smiled. Hey. That's Nell for you. She knows me better than I do most of the time. The Shiwan sighed. Worry about that later. I'm off. The mistress of the Flash disappeared, only to reappear while nearly punting Aizen's head off his shoulders, missing by a few inches. Naruto's smile vanished. They would give him 3 minutes, and judging from the way things were looking with Aizen, that was asking for too much. Clenching his fists, he focused on his Ryotsu. He was given a second chance in this fight. He wouldn't let it go to waste. Rei de Zoro's, Octava Cola. Jin raised Shinso, blocking Aizen's own blade from cutting him in twain. Aizen then raised his hand up and caught Yoruichi's foot, which she had intended to have connect with his left temple. She winced as he tightened his grip over her ankle before throwing her with relative ease. She crashed into a pile of rubble, but quickly shot back into the air, now donning a look that would make lesser men soil themselves right on the spot. Aizen, however, just smirked in his usual manner. So much for your amazing skills in hand-to-hand, Yoruichi. I haven't shown you the limits of my power, Aizen, Yoruichi growled. Shunko. A flaming, white aura surrounded the Shiwan as she closed the distance between them. Aizen backed away from Jin before raising his blade once more to block Yoruichi's fist. I find it pitiful how unprepared you three are. Yoruichi snickered. Don't get so cocky. Aizen's eyebrows rose as the Shiwan intentionally held onto Kyoka Suigetsu's blade. Jin told me your secret, and lucky for me, I never actually saw your Shikai, even all those years back when you were Hiriko's vice captain. You think that just because you've become immune to my illusions that you can win? The Flash Step Mistress laughed. It's worth a shot. Yoruichi's white aura erupted as she attempted to smash a palm into Aizen's face, which he smacked away with his own palm. Clearly you're unable to see how great the distance between our powers are, Yoruichi. Aizen suddenly vanished, and Yoruichi sidestepped as several blasts of crimson energy shot past her, passing through the afterimage left by the transformed man. Kazuki appeared beside her a moment later, cursing under his breath. We can't keep him busy for 3 minutes. The two barely had time to react as a flash of metal caught their eyes. Yoruichi flickered back several feet while Kazuki attempted to block, feeling his arm jar with pain as he fought the vertical strike delivered by Aizen. Jin attempted to take advantage of the moment, pulling his blade back while speaking under his breath, Bankai. Aizen zipped away as the briefest flash of steel grazed against his bangs. Urahara blinked as he saw a few of his hat's fibers flutter down to the ground. Jin's Bankai was indeed a scary one. Being able to form so quickly to such a length, then break down to its former size once more. Aizen looked onto the three who stood between him and Naruto before laughing. It's been less than a minute, and yet you believe you can hold me off for 3? Jin scratched his head. You never know, right? In truth, you're going to get beaten one way or another. Who knows, maybe we'll score a few lucky hits before it's all over. Such naivete. Aizen commented. No, let me tell you what will happen. Aizen raised his blade to face forward. I will quickly dispatch of all 3 of you. Then I will take down Naruto before he can complete whatever transformation he has. Then I will go to Karakura, gather the souls needed, and proceed to take over the spiritual realm. His Ryotsu rose to greater heights as the 3 struggled to remain composed. You will all be crushed before my power. Jin's eyes widened before he raised Shinso, only to be sliced down the torso. He coughed up blood before spinning around, making a weak attempt to catch the defector. He felt his sword snap in half as a deep gash formed on his face, the silver-haired man missing the brunt of Kyoka Suigetsu's edge by mere centimeters. A powerful kick to the ribs finished the former 3rd Division captain, and he was sent careening to the ground below. Kazuki's eyes went from Jin in time to see Yoruichi's remaining protective gear she was wearing be crushed, the sound of her scream piercing his ears as Aizen's free hand crushed her right arm. Yoruichi. Aizen stabbed his blade through the Flash Mistress's side before tossing her a rag doll. Kazuki gripped his blade tightly. Ban. A sharp pain cut through him, and his words caught in his throat as he looked to see his right arm fall limp to his side. Benihime descending to the fate down below. He didn't even get a chance to register the second slash that was sent across his stomach before Aizen grabbed a hold of his throat before tossing him to the ruins below. It's truly become a major annoyance having to continually swat you insects back to the ground where you belong, Aizen stated to the shop owner, who slowly began to lose consciousness. Aizen soon found himself alone, floating in the air. He looked around, half expecting for someone to appear suddenly and try to stop him. He smirked as the seconds passed. It would appear no one was willing to rise up and be cut down. He turned his attention to the rising spiritual pressure that was Naruto Uzumaki. The media Espada was visible, standing on a small building, straining to collect as much power as he could within his now severely reduced time that he had been allotted. He had already succeeded in dwarfing the Ryotsu levels Aizen had as a mere Shinigami captain. It was indeed an impressive feat on his part. Unfortunately, Aizen was no longer a mere Shinigami. Naruto seemed to notice that he had gained the enemy's attention once more, and cursed as he saw a ball of purple light form in Aizen's hands. The Arrancar couldn't stop now lest he waste all the power he had gathered and destroy any chance he had of getting the upper hand in this battle. If he hurls that at me right now. Naruto's words were cut off as the transformed Shinigami threw the ball of purple light straight towards him. Shit. Naruto forced out his Ryotsu, planning to cushion himself from the incoming attack. It wouldn't be enough, but it was better than nothing. Higaku, Lily, Bygone, Santen Keshun, I reject. Naruto's eyes widened as a large triangular shield manifested itself before, its yellow sheen blotting out the purple light from the incoming attack. Naruto turned to his back to see Orihime slowly walking towards him, sweating bullets. The Arrancar cursed, Orihime, what in the hell are you doing? Get out of here, now. Orihime ignored him, walking right past him and stepping in front. The orange-haired teenager's face was set in a firm look of determination, her eyes never leaving the attack Aizen had launched. The blast crashed into Orihime's force field, causing a powerful shockwave to rock the entire city. Orihime slid back a foot, but she held her ground, her eyes looking forward while she grit her teeth. The blast sent ripples of energy across the enlarged shield, but it wouldn't crack. Orihime, move, now, you're strong, but you can't handle. No, Orihime, what? He will not harm you. I will not let him. She took a step forward, and her shield seemed to shine brighter. I don't want to fight, but I will protect my friends, all of them. She looked up to Aizen, tears forming as her glare intensified. I won't let you harm them anymore. Not Naruto, not Ichigo, none of them. Aizen hung in the air, a look of mild curiosity on his face. This girl. That spineless, weak-minded girl. She was stopping his attack. Aizen opened his hand a second time, launching a second ball of energy at the two. Like the one before, its trajectory was halted by Orihime's Santen Keshun. The girl wouldn't budge, and her shield only seemed to shine brighter and grow stronger as time wore on. Naruto's legs were shaking from the sheer force crashing into the shield only a few meters in front of them. What scared him, however, was that Orihime wasn't giving in. She was shedding tears, but her eyes displayed the emotions of a woman who had been hurt, angered, and scared. Orihime was tired of watching from the sidelines. Tsubaki. Koden Zanshin. I reject, a single piece from her hairpin separated from the rest. Tsubaki floated in front of Orihime for several moments before chuckling, great job, Orihime. The redhead simply nodded. Tsubaki began shining brighter than he ever had before rocketing towards Aizen. Those who watched from the distance may have mistaken the small manifestation of the girl's power. Aizen didn't move from his spot, his eyes narrowing as the glowing ball of spiritual power surged towards him. From the emotions ebbing off the attack, Orihime wasn't intent on showing mercy. Aizen smirked before holding up a hand and flexing his fingers. An impressive display for a human, Orihime, but nothing more. Tsubaki made impact with Aizen, and erupted in a dazzling explosion of light. A small shockwave shook the area as Naruto struggled to stay standing. The two orbs that Aizen had launched at them disappeared while Orihime lowered her shield. She took a step forward, watching the dying light from Tsubaki's attack, waiting for a sign of Aizen. I'm sure you're aware that no matter how much anger and hatred you put into that attack, it won't be enough to kill me, Orihime. Both Naruto and Orihime froze in place. The teen was the first to turn around, her eyes resting on none other than Aizen. He stood on the opposite side of the building they were standing on, Tsubaki in his hands. Aizen, leave her be. It's me you're after. Aizen smiled. I suppose she isn't much of a threat to me right now, is she? He began walking towards them, and Orihime once more ran to stand between the two. Damn it, Orihime, get out of here. The last thing I want is for one of you kids to get killed. Orihime said nothing in reply. You've gained quite a backbone, haven't you, Orihime? Aizen commented as he held up Tsubaki. I was half worried for a few seconds when you sent this my way. Unfortunately, your Ryotsu is a pale shadow of my own. Emotions. no matter how powerful they may seem, are nothing compared to true strength. In the end, you are still only human. Aizen squeezed Tsubaki, causing the small spirit to scream in agony. After several moments, Tsubaki went limp, and Aizen tossed him to the ground. Orihime didn't cry out, instead calling the spirit back to her hairpin. Still not scared, Aizen smirked. It was at that point when another Ryotsu level suddenly popped up on the mental radars of the three. Aizen looked to his left just in time to see 3 light green orbs of energy flying towards him. He raised his blade to deflect them, but the impact still sent him careening of the rooftop. He lowered Kyoka Suigetsu, his eyes narrowing. So, you weren't dead after all. Lilith felt like hell as she opened her single eye. The blue sky greeted her vision, and she felt vertigo hit her as the clouds above spiraled. Closing her eyes and groaning, she spoke. Damn it. Stark, what the hell happened? Silence. Stark. Lilith's memory finally caught up with her, and she sat up, regretting the action immediately and falling onto her stomach. She took in a few deep breaths before slowly opening her eye again. The scenery around her was a disaster zone. Concrete and twisted metal all around her. So, you're finally awake. Lilith turned her head to the side to see Berrigan Louisenbarn, or at least what was left of him, in his resurrection form. His bottom half was gone. To where? Lilith had no clue. She only remembered that it had been cut away by Aizen during their battle, and that he had been blasted by a powerful wave of spiritual energy after that. Berrigan, let me help you. Berrigan waved a skeletal hand as she attempted to get up. Don't bother. I'm on my last legs of strength as it is. Lilith noticed the raspy breathing of the Segunda as he began crawling towards her. I won't be able to last much longer, Lilith. Lilith quirked up an eyebrow. Why was Berrigan acting so strange? The normally callous and arrogant Espada almost appeared to be morose. While she didn't especially like him, seeing one of her own comrades in such a state managed to pull at her heartstrings. You're not even aware of the changes you've gone through, are you? Berrigan asked while laughing weakly. It looks like Stark managed to do something to you before he was erased. The Segunda pointed towards a window of a fallen building. See for yourself. Lilith blinked before turning to the window and letting out a gasp. The image staring back at her was not one of the little Arrancar girl anymore, but of a girl in her mid-teens. Her hair had a slight wave to it, no longer straight, and her body looked more curvy and mature. Her mask remains were still that of a helmet, but now she had a necklace of bone like Stark once had. Her outfit was a major change as well. She still wore a vest of sorts, but it was buttoned and 2 coattails trailed down the end, and she wore a skirt with a slit that reached to the middle of her right calf muscle. The overall appearance would have been called very Western had Naruto seen it. Hell, she even had calf-high boots on. Strapped to the right side of her waist was a sword, a katana to be specific. She unsheathed the blade, amused by how natural it felt in her hands. She swung it a few times before sheathing it once more. Damn, I look hot, Lilith stated after admiring herself. Her smirk eventually vanished as she realized that she felt no mental connection to Stark. She turned away from the window to face Berrigan. You said that Aizen erased Stark? Berrigan gave a creaking sigh. I wasn't far from where you two crashed. I saw Stark. I don't know how, but he did something to you, and the next thing I knew, you were as you appear now and there was no trace of him anywhere. Lilith searched within her Ryotsu reserves, and the answer became clear. Stark had given her his power. With his last bit of strength, he transferred all of his own Ryotsu into her. She felt an echo of her former half within her, however weak it was. It was clear, though, that she would never see Stark again. The young Arrancar's eyes began to sting, but a part of her told her it wasn't the time to lament. She could feel the oppressive force of Aizen's Ryotsu nearby, and she had to act. Berrigan. I need to stop Aizen. Wait here, and I'll try and get someone too. I already told you not to bother, Lilith. In case you haven't noticed, my Ryotsu is barely existent anymore. I'm hanging by a thread here, and only my refusal to die quite yet is keeping me alive. He held out one of his skeletal hands. Give me your hand, Lilith. Lilith took a step back. What about your, Lilith, if my released powers were still active, would you be alive while standing this close to me? He didn't wait for a response. Now quit standing there like a useless little brat and hold out your hand. Lilith growled, but approached the fallen Segunda, giving him her hand. Berrigan groaned a bit before a sudden rush of power was channeled into the younger Arrancar. She lifted her hand up and stared at it before returning her attention to Berrigan. What was that? I gave you the last of my powers as well. Hey, ha. The former king of Hueco Mundo's body began to slowly crumble away to dust. Lilith, use what I gave you, and help that blundering idiot Uzumaki finish Aizen. I lost my chance to kill him. It's time for the next generation to lead Las Noches. Hey, come on, Berrigan. We can still save. Her words were cut short as Berrigan lifted his remaining hand. Enough. Lynette, my powers will only last for so long. I don't know how long, but they should be of some use. He coughed, and his body began to disintegrate faster. I'm counting on you all. Don't fail Hueco Mundo like me. The skeletal Arrancar's remaining arm turned to dust, along with the rest of his body. His crown hit the concrete with a hollow clank, and then followed suit. It was a rather anticlimactic ending to the Segunda, but Lynette felt a little at ease knowing that he had died a little more peacefully than some of the other Espada had during this war. Lynette looked to see her hand glowing a light red. It was the color of Barragan's Ryotsu, she noted to herself. It dissolved, integrating itself with her being and washing over her. She felt a sudden boost in her own power, and for a moment the area around her crackled. Reaching for the sword at her waist, she took in a deep breath. She could tell that even with her newfound strength, she would be only a small speed bump for Aizen to overcome on his path to conquering Soul Society. I'll be one hell of an annoying speed bump, though, Lynette stated as she lifted off into the air. She turned towards the distant figure of Aizen, who was looking as ugly as she remembered, and aimed her sword straight ahead. The words came to her naturally. Kickabout, Los Lobos. Aizen stared at who he believed was Lynette Gingerback. How she was alive, he wasn't sure, but he could take a few guesses. Stark and her had always been a unique case, after all. Looks like I need to work on my aim. I should have shot you between the legs, Lynette commented as she blew on the smoking barrel of her six-shooter. Naruto and Orihime were looking to their savior with a mixture of disbelief and relief. The blonde Arrancar felt his jaw drop a little as he stared at his adoptive little sister, and felt a light blush creep on his face. With Los Lobos released, Lynette was now sporting a billowing coat that was opened at the top, hugging the curves of her matured body perfectly. Underneath she wore her buttoned vest and skirt, with the coat being tied off at the waist by a belt before it opened up again. Her boots ended with fur-like fringes similar to that of Los Lobos' design when Stark was in control, along with the addition of spurs. Her mask remains were still present, but the skeletal necklace had changed slightly to have a small coyote skull tied at the end. Lynette? Lynette turned to Naruto and smiled. Naruto Nichan, you alright? Naruto blinked before grinning. Yeah, now that you're here. Where's Stark? Lynette looked to Aizen, her smile vanishing. The blonde frowned before giving a grunt of understanding. So, Lynette, I take it you wish to play the hero and try to stop me as well? Aizen inquired with a smirk. Surely you know what happened to those before you, especially Stark. Don't you dare talk down about Stark, you bastard, Lynette ground out. Aizen flickered from view, as did Lynette. Less than a second passed when Lynette reappeared in front of Orihime and Naruto, revolver blocking Kyoka Suigetsu. The look of shock on Aizen's face alone was worth the risk of such a maneuver in Lynette's opinion. You can't be that fast, Aizen stated with an inquisitive look. How did you outrun me? A little help from a friend, Lynette replied with a smirk, drawing one of the two pistols tied around her waist by a holster. She pulled the trigger, sending out a salvo of Sero-level blasts directly in front of her. Aizen easily dodged them, and put a few paces between himself and her. Sero Matroleda. I see that you hold some of the techniques that you had before Stark was destroyed. Lynette aimed her six-shooter at Aizen and smirked. Yeah, you could say that. I also have a few new tricks up my sleeve as well. A sudden surge of power flooded around the young Arrancar, and Aizen flickered away just as two small blasts of energy surged through the afterimage he made. The small orbs of bright green light made contact with a nearby building before erupting into two separate columns of spiritual energy, clearing away several city blocks in the process. Son of a bitch, Naruto shouted after nearly losing his footing due to the explosion created by the spiritual pressure of the two explosions. Lynette, where the hell did you get that power? Lynette kept her eyes locked on Aizen, who was no longer smiling with amusement, but now frowning with annoyance. No time to explain. Keep gathering your power. I'll hold him off for as long as I can. Naruto looked to the revolver in her hand. New gun? Naruto was silent for a few seconds before speaking. Lynette, stop. You won't be able to fight him very long at your current level, even if you're stronger than you used to be. I know, I wasn't planning on holding him off for long. Lynette pulled back the hammer on her revolver, and Naruto's eyes widened. Wait, Lynette. The media Espada's words were ignored as the green-haired Arrancar shot off towards the transformed Aizen. She continued to fire the deadly barrage of Seros at the man, now using both of her rapid-fire pistols and holstering her revolver after missing him yet again and leveling an entire city block. Quickly fading and reappearing to face her back, Aizen raised his blade to sever her down the middle. Much to his surprise, however, Lynette managed not only to spin around and catch him by the wrist, but also managed to snap a few bones before throwing him a few feet. She then continued to fire upon him. Aizen, despite how mentally prepared he had been for problems like this, was unsure of what to make of Lynette. She clearly was powerful, possibly more than Stark and her had been combined. That wasn't what truly bothered him, though. Back when he had attempted to take out Naruto and Orihime, She had managed to get ahead of him and block. How, though? She was fast, no doubt, but not as fast as him. Watching her chase him right now was solid enough evidence to back up his claim. He changed direction suddenly and flew straight towards the young Arrancar. Flickering between the barrage of green blasts, he managed to close the distance between them before she could register it. However, as he swung his sword to decapitate her, he felt it. Resistance. Just like the previous time when he got behind her defenses. He frowned as Lilynette's eyes followed his blade before she ducked under his swing, and readjusted her aim and fired another volley. This time, she managed to score a hit. Aizen was sent careening back into a fallen skyscraper, shattering the intact windows and crashing into the ground on the other side. He got back to his feet, only to feel a foot connect with his jaw. He skidded back several feet, but was otherwise unharmed. I commend you for being so bold. Most of the others that fought me so far were too hesitant to fight me so directly. Lilynette spun the two pistols around her index fingers while grinning. Really? Huh, so I guess you're a bit miffed that little old me is giving you such problems, huh? Aizen closed his eyes and shook his head. Don't get arrogant, Lilynette. You may have gained a large amount of power since I took you and Stark down last, but you lack the experience and knowledge to use it properly. You sure about that? Aizen froze as he felt cold steel pressed against the small of his back. I get it now. Barrigan helped you. Lilynette pulled the trigger, blasting several hundred sero into Aizen's back. She held both pistols at ready, barrels smoking as she tried to feel Aizen's presence. What happened? I can't even sense him. It's like his Ryotsu just fell off the radar all of a sudden. That's not possible though, he was practically flooding the area before. And I couldn't have taken him out with only a few attacks. A hand rested on Lilynette's shoulder, gripping it firmly. I applaud your efforts, Lilynette, but you unfortunately have lost my interest. The reason why you were unable to sense me just now was simply because I stand in a whole different tier from you. Lilynette began to shake. What the hell are you talking about? To put it in simple terms, I am in a whole different area of power than you. In order for you to feel my presence, I had to lower my Ryotsu to your level. That's not possible. Lilynette spoke, whipping around and shooting at empty space. You cocky bastard. You're not some all-powerful god, stop acting like. Pain erupted through her entire body as she was sent flying through several concrete structures before finally stopping as she met the metal frame of a downed tower. She managed to land on her feet, coughing up blood as she forced herself to remain standing. Keep in mind, Lilynette, that I haven't been using Kyoka Suigetsu at all on you since we started our little bout here. This is simply my raw STNG right now. He flexed his wrist that had been broken only moments ago by the young Arrancar. Any damage that you do to me is futile so long as I possess the Hagoromo. Lilynette spun around, boot meeting Aizen's hand. She grimaced as he held tightly to her foot. So, you've just been toying with me, huh? Lilynette laughed. Fine by me. Looks like I managed to accomplish what was needed anyway. Aizen had no need to ask what she was referring to, for a moment later a giant column of red light shot into the sky. The former captain turned his full attention towards the expanding column of energy, tossing Lilynette to the side like a forsaken bag of produce. So, Uzumaki's finished gathering his power. Aizen laughed. Good. Perhaps I will actually get to use my true strength now. The column continued growing larger, and Naruto's Ryotsu was soon saturating the air. Lilynette couldn't even focus on it anymore, yet Aizen just laughed louder. Yes, Naruto. This is what I've wanted, someone to prove my power is at the top. Come on, then, show me what you've got so that I can throw you to the ground and crush you beneath my feet. Aizen vanished without giving Lilynette a second glance. Gah. Damn. Ichi wasn't joking. Lilynette coughed up a bit more blood before standing up straight. Aizen's in a completely different league than me. Still, she couldn't feel Naruto's presence anymore, but she could see the column of red light from his Ryotsu still glowing. Naruto, I'm coming. Following Aizen's example, she vanished with a quick sonito, heading towards the media Espada's location. Naruto stood upright as his muscled frame twitched under the pressure of his eight-tailed state. He grit his teeth while he attempted to let the pain subside. Damn. Naruto forced his arms to move as he hissed in pain. I rushed things. Come on, move. Naruto. Orihime tentatively approached the media Espada after lowering her protective force field. Despite how powerful he had become, she was unaware of how much Ryotsu he was exuding. Are you? Get back. Naruto shouted suddenly, alarming the teenager. Don't get too close. My body's still adjusting to this form. I sensed Aizen's power increase when he fought Lilynette. Damn it, I should have conserved my power when I broke out of that damn Kaha negation. Orihime took a step back. Naruto, is Lilynette alright? Naruto gave a stiff nod. Yeah, I think Aizen lost interest in her as soon as I transformed. If you need me to, I can heal. Naruto shook his head, eyes facing towards the assumed direction Aizen was. No, get out of here. I can't guarantee your safety, let alone anyone's now. This form is powerful, but it's also unstable. I'm still not used to it. But Naruto growled. Damn it, Orihime, get out of here now while there's still a chance. If you don't you'll get killed, now go. Orihime jumped in fright. Naruto's eyes burned with a fire she had never seen come from him before. Even when he fought against Neutra he hadn't been this terrifying. His voice was laced with something primal and alien to her. She took several more steps back. You don't have to fight him alone. Naruto clenched his fists, his patience beginning to dwindle away. Orihime, look, I won't have the luxury of holding back when I fight Aizen, and that means things are going to get dangerous. Understand? Dangerous. That means you and everyone within this fake town are liable to get sucked into the fight. He turned to face her fully. Go back to the others, tell them the situation, and get everyone out of this barrier, now. Lilinette's coming this way, she'll help you. Sure enough, the revived Arrancar girl appeared. Naruto. Lilinette, I need you to take Orihime with you and get everyone that's still alive out of this barrier. Don't waste time. The green-haired Arrancar quirked an eyebrow, trying to focus on the blonde's words and not his transformation. What do you mean? I'm here to. No, Naruto snapped. I've explained this to Orihime, so get out of here. I can't have anyone get caught up in this fight. But, Lilinette bit her lower lip before shaking her head. I'm not leaving. Naruto's fingernails broke skin, and his palms began to bleed. Lilinette. I'm not leaving you to. Naruto threw a ball at her, striking the ground directly in front of her. She was knocked back several yards from the impact, a look of shock on her face. Naruto Nichin. Do as I tell you, I am not going to argue with you. Take Orihime and get the others out of here. That is my final warning. Lilinette was tearing up, but she reluctantly nodded. Alright. The two were gone within seconds, Lilinette carrying Orihime on her back as she dashed towards the surviving members that were making a stand against Aizen. Naruto soon found himself alone. At least that's what it seemed like. You're not fooling me, Aizen. I know you're watching me right now. Naruto looked up to see Aizen standing at the top of an antennae of a fallen radio tower. His gray eyes watched Naruto with something akin to fascination, that smug grin present on his face once more. So, this is your final form. Impressive, truly impressive. Aizen flickered away, landing on the roof of the building Naruto was situated on. To think that you held this much power within you. It's no surprise you managed to stop Kurosaki and Ulquiorra like you did. So you know about Ichigo's little episode, huh? Naruto's eyebrows twitched. Before I beat the living hell out of you, I have one question to ask you. Very well. Ask away. While I could care less about your reasons for trying to rule over the planes of existence, I am curious about one thing. What will you do after you conquer that spot in the spiritual realm? I know that won't be enough for you, so what then? Aizen chuckled. Interesting question. I suppose I will reply with a question of my own. If, by some stroke of luck, you manage to defeat me, what will you do afterward? You know Seireiti won't be able to trust you, and Las Noches is in shambles without me to govern it. What will you do to establish that order? Use force. Aizen held out his hand. The answer is simple, Naruto. You'll do what you have to. Just like I will when I reach the top. If there is something higher than that, I will find it, and take it for my own as well. The Spirit King's rule over our domain will end with my ascension. When that happens, all will bow to my will and acknowledge my superiority as absolute. Should there be a higher state of existence than the Spirit King, I will become that. It's that simple. Naruto nodded. I see. He bent his arms and legs a little, loosening up as he did so. I guess we're at an impasse. You see, I don't like the idea of someone throwing off the natural balance of things. The thoughts of a compliant fool at best, Aizen commented. Whatever you want to call it, my beliefs are clashing with yours at the moment. We're both powerful, and it looks like we're past the point of trying to reason this with words. Aizen readied his blade. Yes, that would be a fairly accurate statement. Naruto flexed his wrists, the blades jutting out a little further. Good, then I believe we're through talking. A breeze blew past the two for a brief moment. The only sound made was their breathing as they stared each other down. Aizen shifted his right foot slightly while Naruto bent his left knee a little lower. Within the blink of an eye, they were upon each other. Uyunohana frowned as a sudden tremor shook the area around her. Several of the injured groaned, others shouted various exclamations, others simply went silent. Unohana-san. Retsu Unohana looked up to see Orihime being carried by what appeared to be the Fracione that had been accompanying the Primera Espada not too long ago. She smiled, despite the panic-filled atmosphere. Orihime, I'm glad you're alright. We have to get everyone out of this barrier as soon as possible. Lilinette stated while a lunatic dust cloud that had formed in the distance. Naruto's not able to guarantee anyone's safety anymore. I understand. Unohana looked to the most recent patients she had found. Ichigo and Isshin Kurosaki, Nalil, Harabel, Ulquiorra, Kazuki Urahara, Yoruichi, and Jinchuriki. All were unconscious, though stable. All able-bodied Shinigami, humans, and Arrancar, please assist in the evacuation of the Karakura barrier. Hana turned towards Lilynette. I can't sense their powers anymore. What happened? Lilynette's brows furrowed as she shook her head. Aizen mentioned something about him being in a completely different tier of power than us. He had to lower his Ryotsu level for us to sense him. I guess. Well, I think both Naruto Nichan and him are on equal terms now. That's why we can't sense them. They're just in a completely different league of strength than us now. Hana took the news in stride. I suppose that explanation will have to do for now. She turned towards the survivors who were slowly heading towards the exit that a weakened Rangaku was raising up. It appears we will have to place our trust in Uzumaki-san for now. Aizen's jaw cracked as he went rocketing towards the ground. He twisted in midair before landing on his feet and leaping into the air once more. His blade clashed with Naruto, sparks blazing as the two battled for dominance. 4 of Naruto's tails lashed out while the blonde took hold of Aizen's other hand. The transformed Shinigami surprised Naruto, however, when he disappeared in a burst of light before teleporting onto a nearby street lamp. That's a new trick. Naruto grumbled. Aizen faded from view, reappearing directly in front of Naruto. The Arrancar caught the blade by its edge with one hand, blood dripping down his arm. A foot smashed into his stomach, causing the Vulpine Arrancar to double over before a fist smashed into his right cheek. Naruto curled into a ball as he smashed into the ruins of the fake Karakura town, dulling the damage received from the impact. He got onto his feet and ducked as Kyoka Suigetsu grazed his scalp. Too slow, Aizen. Naruto stated while forming a Sero at the tip of each tail. Aizen prepared to teleport just as the powerful attack was unleashed. Aizen phased back with a scorched left arm, but within seconds it was healed thanks to the Hagoromo. His reprieve was short-lived, though, for Naruto was in front of him before he had a chance to react. A ball smashed directly into his face, and the blonde grabbed a hold of Aizen before checking him in the gut with his blades. Aizen felt several of Naruto's powerful tails wrap around him. The blonde held both hands in front of him while focusing his energy within the palms of his hands. A small orb of red light formed before spinning wildly. The energy it gave off wasn't sitting well with the detained man. Striking me with that much power while being this close just endangers you as well. Aizen pointed out. This is a rather reckless action, Naruto. Yeah, I know. The Arrancar wasn't smiling, though, it's going to hurt you more than it will hurt me. Aizen's eyes narrowed. It won't be enough to finish me. The spinning orb of red energy began to grow, and a wind began to pick up. We'll see. The ball suddenly contracted, and Naruto whispered softly, Tormenta. Itachi and Grimmjow stood a short distance away from the evacuating survivors, watching the awesome display of Naruto's power. The ground shook for a brief moment before a massive cyclone that was about a half a kilometer in diameter erupted into the sky. So large was the cyclone of energy that it ended up smashing into the roof of the barrier. Small, nearly transparent cracks could be seen from the impact, and they began to spiderweb around the fake Karakura town. I can't even feel his power anymore. It's like I've lost my sense of Ryotsu, but I know I haven't since I can feel the others nearby. Grimmjow nodded in agreement. He's going to win. I hope so. Otherwise we're done for. The former SXTA snorted. TCH. I thought you were supposed to be Naruto's faithful student. What's with you doubting him all of a sudden? Itachi didn't retort right away, which didn't go unnoticed by Grimmjow. He looked to his left to see Itachi looking down, shaking a bit. I'm scared, Grimmjow. The SXTA wasn't ready for that response. He remained silent as she continued. I always believed that Naruto was powerful, that he could anything. Now, though, now that Aizen's changed to this, I'm worried that Naruto won't be able to keep up. He'll be fine. Itachi looked up, her eyes watering a bit. How can you be so sure? This is Naruto we're talking about, right? Grimmjow inquired. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The idiot's too damn stubborn to kick the bucket when someone like Aizen's running around. For several moments a silence hung in the air between them. The only sounds being made were that of the distant cyclone of energy ripping through the town and the occasional crackle of thunder. I love him, Grimmjow. The blue-haired Arrancar felt his jaw go slack while a slightly dumbfounded look crossed his features. Huh? Come again? Itachi wiped her eyes. I said I love him. Grimmjow frowned, yet made no comment. If he were to die. Itachi's fist shook. I'd probably follow right after him. I'd go out kicking and screaming, wanting to rip that bastard Aizen to shreds. I know I wouldn't stand a chance. But after feeling that loss so many times, only for him to come back and save us. She laughed weakly. It's weird, isn't it? Hollows aren't supposed to have hearts or care about things like feelings and emotions. Still, Naruto seems to just bring it out in those that he cares about. You know that he and Nell too were a thing way back before Harabelle was the Tercera, right? The Frasione nodded stiffly. He still loves her, I guess. I don't want to burst your bubble, but I think Naruto's a one-woman kind of guy. The SXTA let out a growl of annoyance. How the hell did he get so popular all of a sudden? Itachi smiled sadly. I'm fine with that. Just as long as I can follow him wherever he goes, I'll be happy. The Fraccione turned to leave, and Grimmjow said he'd be with the others in a second. He watched as the cyclone faded, lightning creeping across the top of the barrier as its intensity died. You better come back alive, idiot. Grimmjow then turned to help with the remaining survivors, intent on leaving the confines of the fake town. A massive crater was all that remained in the aftermath of Naruto's tormenta. What had once been concrete, steel, and rubble was now glassed over from the intense heat of the combined energy of Naruto and the Kyuubi's attack. The blonde himself was breathing a little faster, and his torso and limbs had several deep cuts due to the whiplash of the high-speed winds he had created. He was able to handle the actual attack fairly well, seen as being exposed to the potent Ryotsu was something he dealt with all the time. He was for the most part immune to its massive power. It helped that he was healing already, too. On top of that, he was faring better than Aizen was. Gah! Ha! Aizen lay on the ground, bleeding and burned all over his body, and his wings had been singed and torn to pieces. That was impressive. But not nearly enough to defeat me, Naruto. Aizen's body was already healing, much to Naruto's chagrin. Go ahead and heal. I haven't even gotten started. Naruto spoke as he walked towards the rising form of Aizen. Hell, I'd be pissed if after all you've done that was all it took to do you in. Aizen, now fully healed thanks to the Hagoromo, smirked. So, I hope that wasn't your best attack. Even if it was, I still have plenty of energy to spare, and we both know that in terms of physical strength I stand above you. Brute force? Is that what you're hoping will save you in the end, Naruto? The Arrancar was now only a few feet in front of the transformed Shinigami bright crimson while his muscles tensed under the weight they were carrying, both in the physical and spiritual energy sense. No, but it helps. Aizen sidestepped to the right as Naruto launched a tail forward. He spun to face the front just as Naruto's wrist blades came to impale him in the skull, Kyoku Suigetsu meeting them with equal force. You seem so eager to fight me, Naruto, Aizen remarked as he and Naruto pushed away from each other. Deep down, despite being an Arrancar, you're still nothing but a monster with only the instinct to kill. You have no right to talk. Look at what you've become. I'm not surprised by your scorn for my new form. Aizen laughed. Fear, which often leads to anger and hatred, are natural reactions to something that one cannot comprehend. Seireiti cannot understand my actions, or how I can be so powerful, so they fear me. As I strike down those that oppose me, they. Aizen's monologue was cut short as a fist flew towards his face. He managed to catch it, but grimaced as the pain shot through his arm. Shut up, Aizen. Naruto lifted both legs and pushed off of the former captain. Aizen skidded back several feet, but held his ground. He teleported to meet Naruto head-on, and blades clashed once more. It appeared that Aizen had decided to up the intensity finally. His strikes had more power behind them, and he wasn't leaving any openings now. Damn, looks like he was just messing with me. He's actually fighting for real this time. Naruto caught Aizen's sword with his wrist blades and pushed him back before dashing quickly and slamming an elbow into his adversary's stomach, following it up with an uppercut that dealt enough force to send not only Aizen, but several tons of metal, skyward. Aizen grimaced as he opened his eyes, Naruto appearing above him and preparing to slam him with his tails back towards the surface. He began pumping spiritual energy into his arms. Aizen prepared to block the attack, but his body suddenly lurched, and he coughed up blood. 5 tails smashed into his frame, sending him down with the help of gravity. Aizen crashed hard, bouncing 3 times before catching himself. He got to his feet to see his body was full of cuts once more. What is this? It's the true power of Tormenta. Naruto replied, now on the ground as well. You didn't think all that energy I released was for show, did you? The blonde gave a toothy grin as Aizen glared at him. You see, Tormenta's true powers lie in what it does to you from the inside. All that excess Ryotsu slipped into your body, or it's still hanging in the air. The only reason you haven't noticed is because I've been drowning it out with what I've been using to defend myself and fight back. Aizen suddenly felt a crushing weight in his chest. That can't be. Yeah, that's right, Aizen. I pulled a fast one on you. Naruto opened up his right hand, and Aizen felt an intense heat build up inside him. Let's see the Hagoromo get you out of this one. The very air around Aizen and Naruto began to heat up as tiny particles of Naruto's spiritual energy became visible. They all began to congregate around the former captain, as though magnetized to him. The image of Naruto smirking burned into Aizen's mind. No, I won't be defeated by a mere hollow eye. His words were drowned out as the concentrated explosion swallowed everything within several city blocks. Naruto remained in place as the heat washed over him, debris flying into the air before being vaporized. He lost sight of Aizen, but he could still feel him. Whatever the case, if he was still conscious, Aizen wasn't feeling too good at the moment. Ooh, Akon, you better get a look at this. Akon was used to Rin Subakora's frantic tone whenever he was stationed at one of the monitors, but considering the current state of things, The acting leader of the SRDI decided the boy's outburst was worth looking into. What is it, Rin? I'm not sure, but one moment that Uzumaki guy or whatever was increasing his power, the next his power just. He tapped the screen. He pulled an Aizen. Akon frowned. That term had been coined by the boy not too long ago. More or less, it meant that an individual's spiritual pressure readings went so high before the computers simply stopped trying to measure. He looked down at the screen, and sure enough, the small message reading, "Error," appeared next to the Ryotsu readings for Naruto Uzumaki, a supposed Arrancar ally of Soul Society. This wasn't necessarily a bad thing, however. The same thing had occurred with Aizen, and it had sent the SRDI into a mild state of panic. If the computers were unable to read their enemy's spiritual pressure, then it was almost certain that the same could be said for the actual combatants of Soul Society. The computer was designed to read energy within the planes of existence of both the mortal and spiritual realm. If this had happened, it meant that either Aizen had transcended to a whole different level of power that was unknown to Seirei, or they were in need of software replacements. Considering that Hyosu was adamant about keeping their technology up to date with Kuritsuchi's standards, it was safe to assume the former of the two was the likely scenario. Continue monitoring, Rin. We can still keep a tab on their souls at the very least. As long as they're alive, they'll show up on screen. Not to mention we have the other fighters to worry about. He turned towards Hyosu, who was observing a separate monitor that was continually assessing the state of the actual Karakura town. Hyosu, anything to report? Nothing new. Though, it looks like Hana-sama's managed to get the others out of the barrier. Akon nodded. He had received a call from Sasaki Fukutaichu a few minutes ago informing them that he was opening the barrier so the wounded and injured would be able to avoid getting pulled into the battle between Naruto and Aizen. From what he'd been told, the fight had reached the point where anyone within the fake town's limits was at risk of getting killed. That thought sent chills down Akon's spine, for two individuals to have that much power. Wait, this can't be right. The acting leader of the SRDI turned to Ren, who was starting to tremble in his seat. Hyosu seemed to notice before Akon had, and was now looking over the boy's shoulder while winding the crank on the side of his head so his eye was able to get a better image of the screen. What's wrong? Akon, Aizen's gone. Hyosu confirmed Rin's report. The computers got no image of him. What about Uzumaki? He's still giving us readings, but his power is still reading as an error for the computer. Maybe we should. Wait. Hyosu leaned towards the screen before gripping Rin's chair tightly, then ran to his own chair and read the computer monitor's readings on the city. Shit, this isn't good. Akon, the barrier's weakening. What do you mean? Has something damaged the central pillar? And no, I don't know why it, Rin gasped before jumping out of his seat. I've got a reading on Aizen again. Ryotsu reading? The computer's reading error again. That. And apparently the space around him is shifting radically. He's creating instability to everything around him. What about Uzumaki? Still no change. Akon grit his teeth. Truth is, they couldn't do much of anything to assist the fighters in Karakura. The most they could do was inform Seirei if the enemy had taken down Soul Society's forces and thus allow Seirei a last-ditch effort to stand against the seemingly unbeatable Sasuke Aizen. What should we do? Rin inquired. We'll continue to monitor the battle. It's all we can do at this point. Akon replied as he slumped into a chair. It seemed that with every passing minute, the situation for Soul Society was becoming bleaker and bleaker. He wasn't 100% sure about it, but he was willing to bet the total salary he made within a year on the end of the world following shortly after if Naruto Uzu battle. Right now, their last hope was in the Arrancar. It was almost laughable. Naruto stood within the center of an even larger crater that had not too long ago been the fake Karakura's shopping district. For a few moments the media Espada had been worried that he was going to destroy the barrier and possibly do some serious damage to the real town below them with the sheer magnitude of the explosion. The central pillar had held, though, much to his relief. That relief was short-lived, however. A swirling mass of purple Ryotsu was now visible to Naruto. Within the center of the vortex stood a lone figure. The blonde grimaced as his suspicions proved correct. Aizen had survived the tormenta and was already recovering. To make matters worse for the Arrancar, the Hagoromo was not only healing his opponent, but transforming him again. A blue light could be seen shining from the chest of the man who had once been Aizen. Yes, Hagoromo. I understand, now. You wish to survive as well. In order for that to happen, I must evolve into a more powerful being. Naruto didn't want to find out what was happening to the twisted form that had once been Aizen. He clenched his right hand as a bright orange light began to form within it. Opening his palm up, he threw a small orb of energy towards Aizen, and quickly enveloped himself within his tails. Aizen didn't even attempt to avoid the attack. The battleground went completely mute as Naruto was blown back by his own attack. He cracked open his eyes to see if he had managed to take out Aizen. Damn! Naruto cursed as he saw the faint outline of Aizen still standing and unharmed as far as he could tell. Almost had the bastard, too. The light began fading, and Naruto's expression became one akin to disgust. Aizen's face had become something resembling a black skull, and a third, vertical slit-like eye now could be seen in the center of his forehead. Feet were replaced with claws, and his right hand was completely merged with his zanpakuto. 6 sheet-like wings were now spread out, eyes on each set, watching Naruto intently. A finishing, and possibly the most disturbing addition in Naruto's opinion, touch was the hollow-esque skulls that adorned each wing. Aizen's brown hair draped all the way down the length of his back. His body still was that same stark white in color for the most part, but had anyone looked upon him for the first time, they would not have believed Sasuke Aizen to have ever been human, let alone a soul reaper. I take back what I said about you, Aizen. You haven't just abandoned what made you a Shinigami. You spit on it and tossed aside completely, Naruto stated as he clenched his fists. Judging from his opponent's increase in power, Naruto was possibly a little weaker than him now. It was a good thing Naruto never relied on Ryotsu alone to fight. The Arrancar with a demon inside him lectures me about forsaking what made me a soul reaper. Aizen chuckled. I won't say it again, Uzumaki. I have not abandoned what made me who I am. I have ascended past it. I've evolved, and as you can see, the Hagoromo intends for me to defeat you, no matter what the cost. TCH, still hiding behind that damn thing, huh? Naruto glanced towards Aizen's chest, where the object of his troubles was still held in place. We both know without that thing, you'd have been defeated way before now. Your words won't faze me, Uzumaki. It is because of my ability to become greater that the Hagoromo's granted me this form. So, with this even newer form, I shall crush you, and destroy the last bit of hope Soul Society has of defeating me. Naruto smirked. Looks like I've got a lot riding on this fight then, huh? The two said nothing further. Aizen held his blade at his side before taking flight, his 6 wings pushing him off the ground with incredible force. Naruto bent his knees slightly before leaping forward, wrist blades growing to their maximum length. All the while, the town of Karakura continued to slumber below, unaware of how close it was to being obliterated. Its fate was completely dependent on the outcome of a fight between 2 beings of incredible power. One driven to rule over all and change the very planes of existence, and the other driven to protect those that couldn't fight and preserve the delicate balance that was the world of humans and spirits. Naruto raised up both hands in front of his face as he was hit dead on with one of Aizen's explosive energy orbs. The blonde, despite his attempt to hold ground, was rocked back before he crashed into the framework of a skyscraper. He grimaced as he slid down the steel beam, raising his head up in time to see Aizen appear in front of him. Now do you see, Naruto? I am far more powerful than you, invincible, and above all else, the holder of the Hagoromo. Aizen gloated. While I must commend you for lasting this long, I can tell that you're reaching the last bit of your strength. Man, do you ever shut up? Naruto griped as stood up, leaping away as Aizen's blade cut the steel beam, as well as the rest of the tower, in two. The Arrancar forced himself to continue evading as Aizen's numerous skull-like faces on his wings blasted small orbs of blue energy in his direction. He could feel the force from their impact even as he continued flying through the air, and judging from the intense light that seemed to flood the area, getting too close to any more of those explosive blasts wouldn't bode well for him. The Kyuubi growled within Naruto's mind. We can't keep evading him, Naruto. Thanks, I wasn't aware of that. Naruto thought aloud, trying to ignore the scolding tone in his Biju's voice. I hate to say it, but 8 tails could prove to be insufficient if we want to defeat him for good. Then what do you propose? Naruto inquired as he dipped low, a blast careening over him. In case you haven't noticed, I haven't been given much of an opportunity to create a plan. Kyuubi was silent for several long moments before speaking again. There's one final option. You won't like it though. Naruto didn't even need an explanation. That option's not a guarantee for victory, no way. I figured as much, but I don't think you have many other choices. Remove the... I just called forth my 8th tail. I'm not going to go and throw down my last resort like that, if I... Naruto was cut off as he was hit with one of Aizen's blasts and getting caught in a gigantic explosion rivaling the size of the Tormenta. Luckily for him, the explosion didn't go for as long. Opening his eyes, he groaned in pain as he struggled to get to his feet. The blast had knocked him to the massive craters from one of the previous explosions that had missed the elusive media espada. Looking up above, he could see Aizen watching him. While he couldn't really tell the man's facial expressions anymore, he was willing to bet that Aizen would be smirking if he still had his normal face. Give up, Uzumaki. There's no hope for this battle to end in your favor. Naruto coughed, not shocked to see specks of blood on his hand. He glared at the man floating above. What did you tell me to do? This battle is worthless for the both of us. You cannot beat me, and I am merely wasting time now. Give up. Aizen repeated, waving his hand in a casual manner. Give up. Naruto gave a low chuckle before 9 orbs of red formed at the tips of his tails while his right hand began to glow with a swirling mass of spiritual energy. You'll never make me. His tails stiffened, pointing up towards their target while his hand drew back. Give up. The 9 Seros shot up at Aizen before combining into a single beam. Naruto then chucked the swirling ball of energy from his hands. The mass of energy from his palms connected with Aizen around the same time as the stream of red light, and the sky was tinted a blood red for several long moments as a cloud of raw power expanded while creating a deafening roar. The Arrancar was breathing heavily now, having expended a massive amount of his energy on both maintaining his current form while using such costly attacks on his opponent. Despite his massive reserves of power, Naruto was not an endless well of energy. Even he had limits, and he knew this. As the crimson hue faded from the sky, Naruto watched, hoping against all hope that he had done something to the twisted creature that Aizen had become. Are you quite finished? Naruto's eyes widened as he saw Aizen's body mending whatever wounds it had sustained from the explosion. No matter what he did, Aizen just bounced back, like nothing happened. Naruto took a step back, his instincts telling him this was a hopeless battle. You can still. No, Naruto growled in protest. Neither of us know what will happen if I remove it. The fox growled in frustration. You're truly a fool, Naruto. If it weren't for the circumstances at hand, I'd probably just let you die right now and wait for my resurrection in a few centuries after I perish with you. Look, not only is it a danger because we don't know anything about it, but there's a chance that it could be too powerful. We might kill those outside of the barrier. Perhaps, but if we don't do something about this, we'll die anyway, and that will be the end of us, Karakura, and the spiritual world. Naruto clenched his fists, unsure of what to do. Tormento wasn't enough, and that had been one of his few trump cards he had saved. His standard techniques were doing zilch for him, and if he did manage to cause any harm to Aizen, it'd just be fixed up by the damn Hagoku. Aizen seemed to sense Naruto's uneasiness. So, you finally understand? Took you long enough, but I suppose it's something that's hard to come to grips with. Aizen held his blade before him. Death is something all mortals fear. Though Shinigami claim to be gods, they too are capable of death. Hollows are no different. Mortal death is merely the end of one mode of existence, resulting in another. It's an endless cycle. One that I wish to change. You're insane. Doing that would be like recreating the world as we know it. You have no right to do that. Aizen laughed in response. It looks like you can show fear after all, Naruto. Don't worry, though. As soon as I dispose of you, I'll kill those that have left the barrier. I'll make quick work of them. A lead weight settled in Naruto's stomach. Nell, Grimmjow, Apache, Harabel, Mila Rose, Sunday to Sunday, Ichigo, Orihime, Shikamaru and Sakura. Everyone he had come to know throughout all of his existence. Perhaps it was the fact that Aizen had said it with such ease, or maybe it was the building pressure and desperation Naruto was facing, but something in him snapped at that moment. Naruto's eyes shone with murder while he let out an inhuman roar. You son of a bitch. Naruto began blasting volley upon volley of blasts at Aizen. He knew it was useless, and that he was being stupid. He didn't care though, he wanted to end this madman, and he wanted to do it now. Through the haze of flashing explosions, Naruto could see the form of Aizen slowly floating through the destruction. Naruto's attacks became more desperate, blasting at a rate he hadn't thought possible. Had he taken more time to notice, he would have probably been pleased to see how well he was holding onto his 8-tailed form. Aizen was now hovering no more than several feet ahead of Naruto. So, this is truly the extent of your powers, Naruto? Go to hell, bastard. Naruto opened his mouth wide and prepared to fire a Sero, but his attack never came. Instead, Naruto felt a powerful hand grab a hold of his face before slamming him to the ground. Your attacks. They're less focused, more predictable, and far less controlled. Aizen commented with a hint of amusement in his voice. I told you already, Naruto. You're foolish to think you could challenge me on equal terms. This shall be your grave. Naruto was pulled up by Aizen and lifted into the air once more, the warped beam's grip threatening to crush Naruto's throat. The Arrancar lashed out with one of his tails, only for one of Aizen's skull appendages to catch it in its teeth. Naruto tried again, only for the other 5 skulls to follow suit. Hey Aizen. Naruto ground out, lunging forward with one of his wrist blades, which was blocked by Kyoka Suigetsu before a second swipe of the blade cut his arm, delivering a deep gash that penetrated the bony arm. Skulls let go of Naruto's tails, and began to encompass him while a blue ring formed around the blonde. Naruto could feel Aizen's Ryotsu beginning to increase. He planned on finishing the media espada right here it seemed. Yes. Aizen began. This attack has enough power to end you. You're aware of that. Naruto's eyes widened. No, he couldn't die here. Not now. Too many were relying on him to stop this bastard, if he failed, if he gave in to defeat. The blue ring expanded before splitting into 3 white rings, each larger than the one before it. The largest one rose up first, with the second floating below it, and the third encircling Naruto himself. The rings began to hum while glowing with the same blue light. Naruto couldn't help but laugh. Has it affected you that much, in your last moments of life? You're laughing? Aizen inquired while tightening his hold around the Arrancar's neck. I suppose this is it, huh? Naruto wheezed. No other way out, huh? You're surrendering to your fate? I must admit, I wasn't expecting this. The blue light from the rings began to intensify. I suppose this shall make my task easier, then. Farewell, Naruto Uzumaki. You shall serve as an example for those who wish to oppose me in the future. Naruto just grinned before he was swallowed up in the blue light. Oh well. I did what I could. I suppose this was going to happen either way. Sakura and Shikamaru watched what they could barely make out as the floating barrier containing the pseudo-Karakura town. Neither could actually feel anything resonating from the location, but they knew from the various explosions made that there was indeed a battle still going on. After several minutes had passed, the explosion stopped. Shikamaru's brow furrowed. Is it over? Sakura gave a weary sigh. I hope so. I'm practically drained of energy from all the healing I've had to do, and… Their conversation was cut off by a flash of blue light. The light filled the entirety of the barrier holding Karakura's replica within it. What is that? Hey, Sakura, what's going on? Sakura looked to see Ichigo walking towards them. I don't know. The fighting seemed to stop for a while, but… She looked up once more to the barrier. I'm not so sure anymore. I hope that Naruto's alright. The barrier, already damaged by Naruto's own powers earlier, began to splinter even more. The walls of the barrier began to give in before they shattered. What? Isn't that the barrier Urahara made? Ichigo asked. What's going on? His eyes widened as he watched the gigantic explosion expand. Was that from Naruto? They trio, along with a few conscious survivors, watched in silence as the clouds of fire began to fade away. Waiting, hoping that they'd get some kind of sign on whether or not the fight was over. Wait. Is that? Shikamaru began, pointing to a figure that was dropping through the clouds, smoke trailing behind. They hit the ground with a distant thud, the smoke still rising into the air to signal, indicating the spot where they had crashed. They felt Naruto's Ryotsu suddenly, but only for the briefest of moments before it plummeted to non-existent. Itachi was the first to voice their fears, having been able to distinguish their features. And Naruto. She began to move. Naruto. A figure suddenly moved in front of her, their back turned to her. Itachi-chan. Don't go running ahead like that. Itachi's blinked, then took in the decidedly female figure's features. White boots, an odd coat with a holster strapped around her waist, and a familiar mask fragment resembling a helmet. Lilith, move. I have to go help Naruto. Lilith looked over her shoulder. Itachi-chan, please. You don't stand a chance. Not even Stark and I did when we worked together. Itachi growled in anger before walking ahead so that she could face Lilith directly. You mean we should just give up? The Fraccione grabbed a hold of the youthful Arrancar's jacket. No way in hell will I do that. Lilith's eyes narrowed before she too grabbed a hold of Itachi's collar. Will you listen to me? Trying to stop Aizen would be suicide right now. Then what do you propose we do? Huh? Lilith's head hung in despair. I don't know. We're just not strong enough to stop him. So what? The girls looked to Ichigo, who was gripping Tensa Zangetsu tightly. Kurosaki-san. Ichigo looked to Lilith. Who cares if he's stronger than us? We have to do whatever we can, right? If Aizen wins this battle, it's over anyway. We may as well put up a final fight. But, I believe Kurosaki-san brings up a valid point. Now everyone was facing towards none other than Captain Unohana. She placed one hand over the blade at her waist, a look of reluctance on her face. Unohana Taiko. Sakura began. What, do you mean you're going to fight? Unohana nodded once. As the highest-ranking officer and sole captain capable of fighting, I have no choice. Matsumoto, Izan, Sakura, I'm placing you three in charge in my absence. If things become dire, you're to open a Senkaimon and get as many as you can back to Soul Society. Understood? Unohana Taiko, but, Izan, Unohana's voice was quiet, yet firm. That's an order. Izan paused before bowing her head. Yes, Taiko. Unohana looked to the few still standing. Ichigo, Grimmjow, Itachi, Lilith, Mila Rose. Sunday to Sunday. Shikamaru, Rukia, Uryu, and Chad. Most of them had stayed back, knowing they couldn't put up much of a fight against the enemy anymore, but it was their only chance. The rest of the captains, vizards, and the other Shinigami were either too weakened to fight, unconscious, or simply not capable of intense combat, as was the case with Orihime. Grimmjow took a look at the small group and voiced his thoughts. Shit, you mean this is it for our forces? Not quite. The group turned back to see Nalil rising up, sword in her hand. Off to the side was Orihime, smiling a little as she watched the former Tercera walk towards them. She stumbled a bit, but managed to right herself. Nalil-san. Sunday to Sunday began. You should be… Nell waved a hand. I'm fine. Just… need a moment. She gave a slow nod to Orihime. Thank you, Orihime. How's Harabel holding up? Orihime looked behind her to the recovering Tercera. Harabel looked to the others from behind the yellow bubble and smiled slightly. I'll be with you all as soon as I can. There will be no need to worry about that. You'll perish together right now. Everyone froze in place as they heard the twisted voice of Sasuke Aizen. Hana looked up suddenly, sword drawn. Aizen. Sure enough, the monstrosity was floating above them. Wings flexed out and skull appendages wriggling around, almost as if they were eager to attack. None of them could feel his Ryotsu, which was both unnerving and a slight relief. The otherwise crushing weight of Aizen's Ryotsu wasn't affecting them as long as he maintained this form. Ichigo placed a hand over his face, calling forth his visored powers. His mask formed differently than it had before, however. It was now like that of his berserk state when he had fought Ulquiorra with the long, pointed horns now present. Oh, another upgrade. Ichigo. Sure, I guess everyone else is changing around here. May as well go with the trend, right? The substitute Soul Reaper replied as he brandished Tensa's Ajetsu. The others drew out their weapons while Chad's arms transformed and Uryu formed his bow. Orihime had instinctively called forth Tsubaki, prepared to provide support for the others. Hana's muscles tensed slightly. You won't win, Aizen. Even if you manage to defeat us, someone else will rise up and take you down. Someone stronger will throw you down from your throne. I'm aware of that. That's why I intend to erase Soul Society. It will wipe out a vast amount of my troubles, Hana. You've truly become a monster, Aizen, Hana said, a rare hint of disgust in her voice. Prepare yourself. I will hold nothing back. The 4th Division Captain leapt, catching the others by surprise. A chilling edge could be seen in the kind-hearted woman's usually calm and warm expression. The lambs are attacking the wolf, is that it? Aizen let out a chuckle. Very well, amuse me. Ooh, cold. Damn it, wake up already. Looks like we've got no choice, huh Kyuubi? A low growl echoed all around Naruto. I already told you this would happen. Naruto opened his eyes and sat up in front of the cave that he held the Kyuubi's spirit within. The paper seals hanging over the cave's overhang fluttered every time the giant fox exhaled a blast of warm air. The forest around Naruto's mindscape looked unchanged, but... So, how long do you think we'll have after we go through with this? 8 minutes, and that's a very generous estimate on my part. Naruto laughed weakly. Damn, burning as bright as possible for a few minutes, huh? The blonde chuckled. Alright, let's do this. Kyuubi's eyes glowed while the symbols inscribed on the seals began to turn red. Naruto lifted himself off the ground and hovered in front of the main seal that held back the demon fox's power from reaching full capacity. I trust I don't need to explain that you can't afford to waste time once you remove the seal, right? Yep. I'm aware. Naruto sighed, his hand grabbing a hold of the slip of paper. For a few moments, he held his breath. Closing his eyes, he thought about all the different reasons he was going to do this. To protect Karakura. To protect Nell, Grimmjow, Harabel, and all the other Arrancar that made up his family. To avenge Stark, Barragan, and all the Arrancar who had fought and died in some way or another because of Aizen. To protect Soul Society, and the Shinigami who he had come to know. To protect the future of the mortal and spiritual world. Naruto's eyes snapped open, now flooded with crimson. He tugged on the seal, and removed it from its spot on the cave. Then, all hell broke loose. Aizen was about to make his move, intent on crushing Hana before she could even attempt to strike, but he felt a tingling sensation in the back of his mind. He turned back towards the spot where Naruto had fallen not too long ago. His Ryotsu had bottomed out, he was sure of it. If that was the case, why was there a sudden pillar of dark red light rising out of a massive pile of rubble? Ravage. Impossible. Rey de Zoros. There was no explosion, no blast of heat, or any other sign that Naruto had called forth his resurrection. The pillar of light remained shooting up to the sky above, and several long moments passed. No one, not even Aizen, moved from their spot. All transfixed on the red column of it felt like the world was cut off from sound for a few long moments. The column of light vanished as a silent rumble was felt to those who were on the ground. Aizen didn't have to wait long for the source of power to reveal itself. A single figure could be seen rising from the column of red light, glowing with a coating of Ryotsu that seemed to be made of flames. The Arrancar looked worse for wear, his white vest now tattered and being held together by a few threads. His hair was singed in several spots, and he was sporting a few deep cuts and burn marks across his body. All in all, the blonde looked to be on the last legs of his strength. Still, Aizen had an unshakable feeling telling him that he was in danger. He didn't know why, but... Primer Cola. A single tail formed around Naruto while the flame-like aura took the form of what appeared to be an animal of sorts. The Kyuubi. Aizen watched as Naruto's Ryotsu began to rise at a steady rate. Segunda Cola. Naruto's tail of Ryotsu split once, and his spiritual pressure seemed to double at that point. Tercer Cola. Quarta Cola. A third and fourth tail appeared, and Naruto's plated armor began to form while bony spines sprouted out of his now solidified tails of flesh and bone. He grit his teeth as the wrist blades burst forth from his arms, and spikes sprouted from his kneecaps. Kinta, Kola. The blonde coughed as blood came out of his mouth, dribbling down his chin as he kept his eyes locked with Aizen. SXTA. Kola. Naruto's armor gained several more spines while his skull helmet became more solid, the lower jaw forming to his own skin. Naruto began to breath heavily as he willed his body to keep going. Aizen had enough, though. Why won't you just stay down? One of the skull appendages spit out a blue orb, which made its way towards Naruto. The blonde's eyes widened before he raised both palms, and the orb suddenly slowed down. He focused his power into the sphere before throwing it upwards suddenly. Several seconds passed before it exploded, rocking the town below while hundreds of windows cracked and car alarms went off. Safety Makola. Naruto hissed as his eyes began glowing brightly, his canines elongating. Octava Kola. Musculature began to form, integrating itself with the bony plating of Naruto's hierro. By now, Naruto was coughing heavily, blood spattering his chest. 8 tails waved behind the blonde now. His body looked like it was ready to fall apart, despite the fact he was using his resurrection. He seemed to be having trouble breathing from the way his chest rose and fell rapidly, and his eyes, despite the crimson glow, were a little glazed over. Naruto raised a limp hand, and a flicker of orange flame appeared in front of his open palm. He looked at it and smiled as the flames took the shape of a rectangle. Within the flame's center was the glowing words for seal. Naruto gripped the seal made of flames, and pulled it down from whatever it was stuck to. Several seconds passed. The flames disappeared suddenly, and Naruto's head drooped while his body went slack once more. For a moment, it seemed as though he was unconscious, or worse. Aizen began to move towards the floating body at a cautious pace when he suddenly stopped. Navina Kola. Aizen was blown back by a sudden blaze of ryotsu that had dwarfed anything he had felt from the blonde previously. Naruto's armor disintegrated within the flames while his skin began glowing a golden hue. Strange markings made of light began to circle around him as his body began to move again. Ichi removed the seal. Sakura whispered in awe. Naruto, did he? His now golden aura morphed before it expanded, and took a new form. 9 tails, accompanied with a large, animal-like body that dwarfed the Urankar's own frame, were now visible. 2 red eyes formed on what appeared the head, and looked to Aizen. A flaming maw opened up before eliciting a roar that shook all those within the town of Karakura to the very core. Aizen glared at the blonde before him, then looked to his arm fused to his blade. It was shaking. No. Why? Fear? Aizen, the holder of the Hagoromo. Afraid? Why? He had no equal. No one could stand against him. Aizen. Naruto began, his vest beginning to disintegrate as it flew off his shoulder before hitting the golden flames of his ryotsu. You're finished. It all happened too quickly. The blonde disappeared, his aura vanishing with a flicker before reappearing near the group opposing Aizen. The twisted man felt pain ripple through his body before his back and sides were ripped to shreds by invisible blades. No, not invisible blades. Naruto had simply moved so fast that even Aizen hadn't noticed him attack. Jiga! Aizen held in pain, but his body was already attempting to heal the wounds. He was caught off guard though as 4 tails of the golden chakra wrapped around his body, holding him in place. Naruto didn't make any move to attack after that. Naruto-kun? The blonde looked over his shoulder to see Nell approaching him. Nell, please stay back. Nell frowned, but complied. Where did you get this power? Naruto gave her a ghost of a smile. I've always had this power, Nell. I just forgot about it, and never wanted to use it. No one spoke for several moments, Aizen's body apparently having trouble healing properly thanks to the heavy ryotsu that was stylish. Why now, though? What's held you back before? The former Tercera asked. The media espada just chuckled quietly, looking forward once more. He exhaled deeply before looking to Aizen. Nell. I'm sorry we didn't get to spend more time together after all these years of being apart. Huh? Nell blinked, caught off guard by the sudden change in subject. She smiled, despite the foreboding feeling she was getting. That's fine, Naruto. After this is over, we can. I love you, Nell. Again, the green-haired woman was taken for surprise by Naruto's words. It wasn't what he said that was scaring her. It was how he said it. It sounded like the voice of a person on their deathbed. I love you too, Naruto. She held her sword at ready. Let's finish Aizen and then. A flash of light blinded Nell, along with the remaining defenders of Karakura. She blinked several times to see a giant bubble of the same golden aura surrounding Naruto and Aizen. The former captain looked around before speaking. What is this, Uzumaki? Naruto smirked with confidence, though his eyes seemed to be reflecting nothing but pain in them. This is my grand finale, my final stand. Naruto's entire body began to shine again, a melodic hum emitting from his growing aura. The coup de grace. Aizen's eyes widened at that. No, you wouldn't. You'd destroy Karakura. Not with this little bubble around us. Naruto indicated. My aura acts as a separate entity now, only working in sync with me when I needed to. The Kyuubi's in control of it otherwise. Luckily for me, the fox decided to go along with our plan to defeat you. I just wish using this form didn't have such a nasty side effect. The others listened intently, being close enough to hear Naruto's voice as he spoke to Aizen. Side effect, Orihime repeated. What does he mean? Maybe it hurts him as well. Chad suggested. Perhaps it's so powerful that the attack causes damage. No, it's worse than that. The group looked to Harabelle, who was on her feet once more. The tiniest hint of moisture was in the corner of her eyes as she looked towards Naruto. Harabelle-sama. Sunday to Sunday began. What's happening, then? Nell beat the blonde Arrancar to the answer, though. Naruto's going to die. The group turned to the former Espada. Her head was hanging low now, her shoulders shaking. She let out a shaky breath before continuing. Naruto, is that what you're planning? The blonde looked back again, frowning as well. Nell looked up to him, and for several long moments they said nothing before the blonde smiled. I'm sorry. Nell slowly began to cry. Why? You don't have to. Naruto just smiled. Nell-chan, I can't contain all this power inside of me. I had to use it, though. He clenched his fists as he continued. As much as it annoys me to admit it, Aizen could have done me in had I not used the ninth tail. The Arrancar, humans, and Shinigami all just watched as Naruto slowly lifted the bubble up into the air. The golden light began to pulse from Naruto's stomach, where the seal could be clearly seen. Naruto, please stop, Nell called out. You don't have to do this. Goodbye, Nell-chan. Naruto spoke, looking down to the woman he had never been able to get over even after years of separation. He scanned over the faces of everyone present, trying to memorize every feature of his friends. Grimmjow. Thanks for always being a reliable friend, and for sticking by my side until the end. He grinned. Try to loosen up a little bit, alright? Las Noches is going to need you to help take care of it when I'm gone. Grimmjow just frowned, though he looked more reluctant than angry. Yeah, you got it. The blonde turned his attention to Harabelle. Harabelle-chan. He looked off to the side, a small frown forming. I'm sorry I never gave you a chance. He scratched his head while grinning sheepishly. I wish I had paid more attention to you. Maybe I would have noticed the signs, haha. The Tercera could only smile, nodding weakly. Apache. I'm so proud of you. It was an honor to be your tutor all these years. That goes for you too as well. He looked over to Mila Rose and Sunday to Sunday. All three of you have such potential. Follow your dreams, and don't ever sell yourself short, alright? Apache, who was currently shedding tears, gave a stiff nod. Alright, Naruto-sensei. Mila and Sunday to Sunday gave nods as well, afraid to speak unless their voices cracked from crying. Sakura and Shikamaru each shared looks with the blonde. He gave a fox-like smile. Haha, I still can't believe the luck I have, getting so see you two again. I'm happy that you've both managed to become Shinigami. I'm glad that people like you are in charge of protecting the mortal realm. I can do this without regrets knowing that you two are around. Sakura wiped her eyes, trying to stay strong. Baka, she laughed weakly. Shikamaru was also fighting back tears. We'll both continue to do our best, Naruto. I know, the Arrancar replied. He glanced over to Ichigo, that grin still on his face. Kurosaki. Don't slack off on your training, alright? You're something else, kid. I mean it. I honestly can't put a peg on where you stand. That says a lot. You can become one of the strongest Shinigami Seirei has someday. Don't forget that. Yeah. Ichigo, having removed his mask, was smiling. Thanks for protecting Karakura. You got it. Just don't forget, you're in charge of this place now, Naruto answered. Silence once again hung in the air, aside from the occasional grunting from Aizen as he struggled to free himself from Naruto's grip. You can't kill me, Uzumaki. I'm immortal. The Hagoromo won't allow me to. Aizen's words were cut off as he felt his mask begin to chip. His wings began to go limp, and he felt his strength leave him suddenly. Looking down to his arms, he noticed his hierro-like skin beginning to crack. A panicked look crossed over his face as he watched shards of his shell fall from his body, only to disintegrate within Naruto's bubble. Huh, I was right. Aizen, whose body was beginning to regress to its former state, glared at the Arrancar. Right about what? Naruto pointed to Aizen's chest. That. Aizen followed Naruto's gaze, and his breath caught in his throat. The Hagoromo, it was. Where is it? Aizen's voice began to lose its animalistic edge. The Hagoromo, where is it? Right here. Resting in the palm of Naruto's right hand was none other than the Hagoromo. It glowed with that same unnatural hue, though a bit more subdued than before when it was embedded in the chest of Aizen. How did you get that? When? You said it yourself. It grants the wishes of those with a strong enough will. My wish was to simply take it from you, and destroy it in the process. It would never allow that to happen, its own will would stop. The media espada wrapped his fingers around the small object while shaking his head. Yes, but it realized how futile it would be to resist. With my current power, and the strength of my will to defeat you in it as well, the Hagoromo realized it stood no chance. I would find a way to win, no matter what. Aizen's face contorted into a vicious grimace while he glared daggers at the Orochimaru. Damn you, Uzumaki. Damn you, I can't possibly lose to you. You're nothing but a damned hollow. I gave you power, I command the Hagoromo. Not anymore. Naruto ground out. He held onto the glowing orb, which began to fracture before it broke apart into hundreds of tiny fragments. Said fragments began to fade away into particles of spiritual energy before getting swallowed within the raging fires of Naruto's Ryotsu. The former captain felt his chest tighten as he watched the last fragments of the Hagoromo vanish. And no, you fool, do you realize what you have done? Yeah, that was intentional. Naruto replied. You destroyed the one thing that can help take down the Soul King. That was my one chance to remove that damned thing from Soul Society. Aizen roared. The wings, the claws, and the skeletal face. Naruto now simply held a man whose powers were somewhere between Hollow and Shinigami. Not quite Vizard, and not quite Orochimaru. In an ironic twist of fate, Aizen had fallen from power just as quickly as he had risen. It's sad, almost. You were a powerful man, Aizen. A bit ruthless and at times terrifying, but still. I held some respect for you. When you told me of your plan to use human hostages like Orihime. When you told me of your plan to eliminate Soul Society. I knew I couldn't follow you. You'd rather sit in this stagnant world, is that it? Aizen growled. I would expect someone of your power to want to improve it. Change it, for whatever you see fit. How can you stand to live in the position you have right now? Subjugated by the will of an entity that hovers over the world of souls without ever involving itself. Aizen's voice rose with every word he spoke. You're a coward, Uzumaki. A lowly dog who bows his head with his tail between his legs. He managed to wrench a hand free, only for a fifth tail to wrap around it. I won't be held down by the whims of that thing, the Soul King. Naruto simply shook his head. If I decided to destroy the Soul King, then I'd end up destroying the natural order of the spiritual realm, Aizen. That would affect Shinigami and Hollow alike. The world would be thrown off balance, and become engulfed in chaos. Not if I had the control, Aizen. I'd rather die than let you have control, which is precisely the reason why we're in this predicament. Naruto's seal began to fade as his body slowly broke apart, spiritual particle by spiritual particle. He gave one final look to the group behind him. His crimson eyes locked with Nell's hazel brown. He raised up a hand, as though reaching out to her. Nell did likewise, body racking with sobs. Naruto-kun. She watched as several tiny beads of light circled around her before melting into her own body. She didn't know if she was supposed to feel anything different, but part of her knew it was Naruto's way of trying to leave a portion of himself with her, if only for the sentimental value of it. The blonde simply nodded. I love you too, Nell-chan. There was a bright flash. Nell's eyes couldn't see, but she continued to look on. She felt the incredible force of Naruto's Ryotsu crash down upon her, though it wasn't an oppressive feeling. In fact, the feeling was growing weaker. Naruto was fading from her senses. Fading. Naruto. The Orochimaru. No. The man, who had managed to make her feel loved in a way she had never felt before, was leaving her, again. The man whose selfless actions at this very moment were saving the world from destruction. The man who she would never see again, Naruto. She made to move forward, only to feel two powerful arms grab a hold of her torso. She fought, despite her still weakened state. Let me go. No, she elbowed her captor, trying to free herself desperately. Naruto. Let me go. Naruto's going to. Nell, stop already. It was Grimmjow. She stopped as she felt the Sexta's grip tighten. I want to stop him just as much as you do, but... He cursed under his breath, his voice beginning to shake. This is the only chance we have of stopping Aizen for good. It's not fair. Nell choked out, sobs racking her body as she gave up her struggle, too exhausted to continue. I know. Grimmjow agreed, his hands trembling as he watched the scene unfolding before him. The blinding light had begun to fill the entire bubble of Ryotsu Naruto had made, and was now floating upward while expanding. Within the glowing Ryotsu bubble, Aizen could feel himself being shredded apart by the otherworldly power of the Kyuubi and Naruto's combined spiritual energy. The traitorous captain let out a scream as pain seared through every fiber of his body. Eventually his screams were drowned out as the roaring flames consumed him. As quickly as it came, the pain suddenly vanished. So, this is how I am to die, Aizen thought. A death dealt by the hands of an Orochimaru that houses an ancient container of spiritual energy? He felt his skin being peeled away, then muscle, and finally bone. To think, I had prepared to take on the mightiest of captains. Only to be killed by a subordinate I thought I had complete control over. Aizen's very essence was engulfed within the golden flames, disintegrating into ashes, dust, and then nothingness. Naruto grit his teeth, his body no longer able to control his power. He had stuck around longer than he should have, and he knew it. Now he was paying the price for drawing upon the full power of all 9 tails of his resurrection. I guess this is it. Naruto thought with a strained smile. He felt the flames began to engulf him as well. He looked to see his arms disappearing. It was surreal, watching his body fade away while he was still alive. Despite the pain, and despite the fact he was dying, he was happy. Reluctant, yes, but happy nonetheless. Soul Society would be safe from Aizen. Karakura, as well as the rest of the human world, wouldn't be ruled by Aizen. Most importantly, though, Las Noches, and all of his family and friends, would survive, and live to see another day. This is good. A fitting death for the hero at the end of a battle, haha. Naruto closed his eyes as he continued laughing. He let his thoughts wander to everyone he was leaving behind. He wondered how Las Noches would fare. Harabel and Nell would be able to take care of things, and he could trust Grimmjow to protect everyone. Ulquiorra wasn't that bad of a guy either, so Naruto trusted him. He just hoped everyone wouldn't be sad for too long with him gone. As for Karakura and Soul Society, well, Ichigo was a tough kid. He had a ways to go before he discovered his true potential, but he was still strong. Sakura and Shikamaru were Shinigami too, so he was content with them helping run things on the other side. Ashes to ashes. Haha. Naruto managed to rasp out as he felt his body's chest burn away. Goodbye, everyone. With that, the media Espada, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yuko, the being who saved the mortal and spiritual realms, vanished in a blaze of glory. Harabel wasn't sure how much time had passed before she got back onto her feet and took in the surroundings. There was still a soft wind blowing from the explosion Naruto had made in his final act to stop Aizen. She couldn't help but let out a soft chuckle. It was so much like him, flashy, powerful, and left anew with an impression long after it was over. In the end, Naruto had gone out with a bang. As sad as it was for him to be gone, she supposed he would have liked no better ending. Protecting them had been something he had always lived for, and in the end, he had done just that. Harabel-san, the Espada looked over her shoulder to see Unohana standing before her. She gave a respectful nod to the captain, which was returned in kind. Unohana-san, I thank you for healing us, even though we are not among your own forces. That was what I wished to talk to you about, actually. Unohana began. I was hoping we could form an alliance of sorts. Despite our different origins, Soul Society and Las Noches could come together and form a union that would benefit both sides as well as the human world. The blonde Espada raised an eyebrow. That could be arranged, yes, I think that would be wonderful. Unohana smiled. I'm sorry for the loss of your friend. Uzumaki was a true hero, and has shown all of us that kindness and sacrifice are not something that is limited to only certain groups of beings. On behalf of Seirei, I thank you and your allies for the help you've given us. Think nothing of it. Aizen had to be stopped, and despite our origins as hollows, we're not all hellbent on controlling the spiritual realms and devouring souls. Unohana gave a final nod before walking towards the wounded. Harabel let out a soft sigh before looking up once more to the sky. Goodbye, Naruto. Grimmjow sk of cement, idly rolling a rock with his foot. He was pissed. Pissed off at Naruto for doing something so. Stupid bastard. Grimmjow grumbled. Deep down though, he knew that he couldn't be angry with Naruto. He just wished that his longtime friend, sparring partner, and brother in all but blood were still alive. Now that he was gone, he wasn't sure who he had to relate to anymore. Naruto had been the one chain holding him to Las Noches, and with that chain severed. Grimmjow? The SXTA Espada looked up to see the teary-eyed yet smiling face of Orihime. What? Orihime wordlessly bent down to be eye level with him before gently wrapping her arms around him. It's alright to feel upset, you know. You don't have to hide it, you have friends here. Grimmjow initially wanted to push her away. Sure, she was cute and strong in her own way, but he didn't need sympathy. For some reason or another though, he felt his arms tentatively embrace her while he pulled her ever so closer to him. He let out a shaky breath, but refused to shed tears. Naruto wouldn't have wanted that. Thanks, Orihime. Orihime only held him tighter while continuing to breathe softly. Perhaps Grimmjow could find a new reason to exist after all. Apache was a bit surprised to find herself being held in the arms of Mila Rose of all people. Sure, they were friends and comrades, but they had never been what one would call close to the point of being comfortable in such a position. Right now though, the young Arrancar needed this. He really is gone, isn't he? Mila herself was an emotional wreck. Naruto's death had been as painful as it had been sudden to all of the Espada. Hell, even Ulquiorra looked more depressed than he usually was. Mila sighed before loosening her grip a bit. Yeah, I guess he is. Apache looked down before clenching her fist. She glanced at the chakram on her wrists, then unclenched her fists. She slowly unlatched herself from Mila Rose before standing up. I'm the pupil of Naruto Uzumaki. she stated quietly, though it was clear there was pride in her voice. Even if he's gone, I won't stop carrying on what he taught me. I'll just have to become stronger to make up for the gap he left. She looked down to her friend and smiled a little. Don't you think so, Mila? Sunday to Sunday, you and I. We all were taught under him and Harabel, two of the strongest Arrancar in Las Noches. I think it's time we start showing that. Mila couldn't help but smile as well while wiping her eyes. Yeah, you're right. Naruto wouldn't have wanted us to be moping around like this forever. She got to her feet and smirked. Though, I'm still pretty certain that you'll need to work on your resurreccion's appearance if you want to look powerful. Apache's eyebrow twitched. Hey, shut up. My resurreccion is just fine how it is. Unel had watched with bleary, tear-flooded eyes as the distant ball of flames and Ryotsu exploded, clearing away the clouds within the area and washing the city in a wave of heat for several moments. Nearby car alarms had gone off while powerline transformers exploded within a 5-mile radius. The next several minutes didn't really register to the former Tercera. She gave a nod when Grimmjow had ushered her to the ground below. She made no audible comments when Orihime had spoken to her, just nodded and accepted the girl's hugs and kind words of comfort, whatever they may have been. From what she understood, Hana was to take the rest of the Soul Reaper forces back to Seirei so that they could rest while the SRDI made the proper repairs on Karakura. Harabel, speaking on behalf of Las Noches forces, replied by stating that she would do the same. The two women also hammered out a date to meet and discuss about making peace between the Arrancar and Soul Society. Nell simply stood, looking up to the cloudless spot where Naruto had last been. She never felt his Ryotsu vanish, but she felt an emptiness in her heart. Her heart. She chuckled. Arrancar supposedly don't have hearts. That's what the hole represented. Still, Naruto had disproved that logic time and time again. With him gone now, though. Nalil-sama. The green-haired beauty turned to find Sunday to Sunday standing awkwardly, eyes red and puffy. Sunday to Sunday, right? Yes. Well, I found this over in that pile of rubble. It looks like it was Naruto's. I thought that. Well, I believed that you'd want it. Nell's eyes widened as Sunday to Sunday drew from her sleeves the shattered remnants of Rei de Zoro's. The handle was still intact, but the steel had been broken a few inches from the blade Suba. The older Arrancar wordlessly took the broken sword, giving the Frazione a grateful nod while fresh tears poured down her cheeks. Sunday to Sunday merely smiled while walking back to her comrades. The former Tercera spent several long moments by herself after that, watching the sky above. She would move on. Naruto would have wanted that, and she knew it. She just hoped Pesci and Dondosheka would be able to cope with this as well. It would take some time, and the wounds would probably never fully heal. Naruto had opened her eyes up to a world of joy and showed her that no matter what, one could love and give love in return. Naruto had become an example of what a true Arrancar could be. Selfless, brave, generous, and above all else, kind. Las Noches. Nell whispered while dropping her gaze to Naruto's sword. I'll protect them, Naruto-kun. Holding the broken Zanpakuto close to her chest, Nell glanced up to the sky once more. Naruto-kun. I'll make you proud. I'll make Las Noches into the kind of place you always wanted it to be, I promise.